Hey now, good Thursday afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you for the next 3 hours, getting you ready for a busy next couple of days in the world in sports. Thank you so much, world of sports, I guess. Thank you so much for joining us to be a part of the program today. We would love your input on everything we are talking about, either in the comments on our YouTube stream. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our YouTube channel. We're also streaming live via Twitter. And, of course, you can always text us on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is our text line number. Let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about on the show today. And we do have a bunch to get to over the course of the next 3 hours, including plenty on the Chiefs and Broncos coming up to lead things off.
Not so much about the Broncos.
Well, yeah.
What do you say about them?
They stink.
What can you say about the Denver Broncos that hasn't already been said about Afghanistan?
Do you want to finish the bit?
They look bombed out and depleted.
Hate. We didn't bring up, because we saw this on our trip down to Arlington, they've stopped using like Russell Wilson in promotional graphics on social media. Yeah. They're now just using random defensive players.
Yeah, last week is like 24 hours to kickoff on @Broncos, and it was Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, which, yeah, he's their main attraction, and the Broncos player pictured was Alex Singleton. Do you know who Alex Singleton is? I'll bet you don't.
There was also one with linebacker Josie Jewell, who's
Iowa great.
Yeah, he's a really good college player. He's just a tackle merchant in the NFL. The social media team's given up. The players have given up. I would imagine by this point, Nathaniel Hackett has probably given up.
Cortland Sutton's probably not going to play this week. DJ Jones, one of their best defensive linemen, is all of a sudden out of practice and looking like he may not play this week. Like, it's all bad. Usually there's like something redeemable.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing.
There's
nothing to redeem the Denver Broncos at this point.
They're the opposite of what the Bengals and Titans have done against the Chiefs in recent weeks, where it's everybody's getting healthy just at the right time. Cortland Sutton's saying, nah, I need the rest. I'm good. So we're going to talk mostly about the Chiefs. But with 5 games left against 4 teams, they'll play the Broncos twice. They've got a combined winning percentage of 34%. What do we want or need to see from the Chiefs over the next few weeks to get to maximum confidence as we head into the postseason? So we'll get to that coming up here in just a second. We will also preview the game, Chiefs-Broncos, with Mitch Holthus of the Chiefs Radio Network, the voice of the Chiefs, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. That's coming up at the bottom of the 5 o'clock hour today. Also, another NFL topic we'll get to in the 4 o'clock hour. Looking back to the 2020 NFL draft. When you say 2020 draft, why? That quarterback class could shape, to a degree, the next era, part of the next era in the NFL. Some of them have already ascended to superstardom. Some we thought might get there, and they haven't. There's also Jordan Love. So we're going to talk about that and how it has already shaped the NFL as it stands, and has shaped a couple of teams that, by the way, the Chiefs are competing head-to-head with to get to the Super Bowl and to even get the number 1 seed this year. So that's coming up later on in the show today. We also will get to Crosstalk with Fulton. That's coming up to lead off the 4 o'clock hour. Rick Peterson is going to join us bottom of this hour for the Envista Credit Union High School Whiparound. Pistol is down in Emporia today for some high school basketball tournament action down in Emporia at White Auditorium. We'll preview Thursday Night Football. We've got our weekly same-game parlays and a game preview. It really sounds like Baker Mayfield might start tonight, which is unthinkable because he didn't even get to Los Angeles until Tuesday night. But he might actually be starting in the game today. So we will get to all that coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. Plus, what is wrong with you? Our headlines, either or, over, under. It is all coming up on the show today. And again, you are welcome to chime in on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, and in the comments on our YouTube live stream. Sports on 580 WIBW is the account. 5 games left for the Chiefs this regular season, weeks 14 through 18. They'll play the Broncos twice. They've got the Raiders. They've got the Texans, and they've got the Seahawks. That last game is going to be the toughest one, but they being the Seahawks, are backsliding. I think this is regression to the mean a little bit. You know, injuries pile up for everyone at this point of the year. Defense has slid a little bit. Offense maybe hasn't been quite as pristine as it appeared to be at the beginning of the season. That is the toughest game left for the Chiefs. The Raiders are beatable. The Broncos are awful. The Texans are going to get the number 1 overall pick. What do you want to see, or what do you think we need to see out of the Chiefs in the next 5 games against these 4 opponents to give you the maximum amount of confidence possible going into the postseason? And this could be something intangible or something tangible. I mean, the tangible might just be, I want to see 5 wins to wrap up the number 1 seed, because it's not likely that the rest of the AFC all goes undefeated over the next 5 weeks. The Bills, for example, who have the number 1 seed right now,
they play the Bengals.
Yeah.
One of those teams is going to have to lose, although I guess they could tie.
They play the Jets. That's in Buffalo, but the Jets at least have a good defense.
And already beat the Bills this year.
Jets beat the Bills?
Didn't they? Pretty sure they did.
They did. Yeah, you're right. 20-17 back on November 6th. I had forgotten about that.
You made me question myself.
Yeah. No, that's my bad. I had totally forgotten about that. So they have to play the Jets, who have already beaten them. They have to play the Dolphins, who have already beaten them. They'll beat the Bears. They have to play the Bengals, who are
pretty good,
gunning for that number 1 seed, and just beat the Chiefs.
Playing as well as anybody in the league right now.
That's a very hard schedule for a very banged up Bills team. The Bengals, same thing. They've got multiple division matchups left, and they've got to play the Bills. Very difficult. Miami, same boat. All these teams that are fighting for the number 1 overall seed are all in a very similar position. Baltimore is technically still in the running. I think they're 5th out of 5, but you understand my point. Let's just start with number 1. What is the biggest thing that you feel like we have to see over the next 5 weeks? Is there anything they can do against weaker competition in the next 5 weeks to increase your level of confidence going into the postseason? Or does it essentially turn into a wait and see, since the last really good opponent they played, the Bengals, got them, and we're going to actually need to see it in action in a playoff game before we have that confidence?
So I think for the greatest jolt of confidence necessary, I want to go back to the thing we were talking about on Tuesday's show, where the Chiefs have had the opportunity to finish games and really haven't been able to do it. And some of that, look, it's not going to take a lot to finish these teams off. There might be a time or two in the next 5, and the Chiefs could win them all, and I would argue should, that they play with their food a little bit in much the same way they did with the Rams. Like, would it shock me in the least to see the Chiefs really keep it vanilla on offense against the Broncos because they know they can score 24 and beat that team? No, it wouldn't surprise me if they were really vanilla, or if the stuff they called in the, what would you call the 8-minute offense, with a big lead, is maybe not your best stuff, your A+ stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily know that we're going to be able to see measurable improvement in that category. But the one thing that has been common in the last 2 one-score games for the Chiefs is that they have had a turnover late that has led to a go-ahead drive for the other team. So that speaks to 2 things for me. Number 1, got to take care of the ball in critical spots. Chiefs have been a little bit profligate with the football at times this year. They've got to do a better job taking care of the football, making sure they don't give their opponents extra possessions, because that's how you level the playing field. When you've got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, give the other team free possessions. Give the other team a bonus possession. Blow off your own foot and don't allow yourself to finish a drive when chances are with 15 as your quarterback, it's going to finish with points. So that's one thing. Limit those turnovers, limit those mistakes on offense. But the bigger thing to me is somebody on this defense needs to step forward and be the guy who makes that play, who rips the ball out of the hands of a ball carrier, who makes an interception, who gets the big sack on 3rd down. Chris Jones has had a knack for that throughout the season, but somebody else. It doesn't take being a Pro Bowler. It doesn't take being the best player on the team. It just takes a desire and an ability to be in the right spot to make a big play for this Chiefs defense. I'd like to see them close games out with that side of the ball, to be able to get in a similar fashion to the Rams game, where they got 2 picks in the final 2 Rams possessions, or the final 2 meaningful possessions. I know the Rams had it when the clock ran out, but that's what I want to see more of. I want to see more turnovers forced. I want to see more big plays by this Chiefs defense. I think they're capable. I think any defense is capable if you're well schemed, which I think the Chiefs are for the most part, and if you put yourself in the right spot. But a lot of times it's about toughness, it's about desire. I thought the Chiefs were lacking a little bit there against Cincinnati. They can't get caught lacking again. I want to see that from this defense the final 5 weeks.
In terms of making big plays, do you know where the Chiefs rank in the NFL in terms of takeaways this year?
They are very low.
They are tied in 24th, which sounds bad, but not like terribly awful. There are 6 teams that are tied in 24th. So you could effectively say they're 29th in the league, and you would also be correct. They've got 12 takeaways the entire season. 12 takeaways in 12 weeks. That's not good. And it's very bad. They're near the very bottom of the league. That is part of the, to me anyway, that is part of making a play, stepping up in a big moment. How many times have the Chiefs gotten a big, crucial takeaway this season? Even beyond total takeaways, how many times has there really been a momentum shifting, momentum building kind of takeaway? I think of Jalen Watson's pick 6. That's about it. There have not been many.
L'Jarius Sneed's strip sack in the Tampa Bay game is one that stands out. Chris Jones recovering that fumble. And probably Sneed's pick in the Rams game, because the Rams were never really going to threaten that game, but it was a 2-score game. The Chiefs had just committed a potentially momentum swinging turnover. So that was significant for the Chiefs to go out, force a turnover, get the ball right back, and be able to put the Rams out of their misery. Those would be the 3 times this year where I've said, yeah, that was a huge play within the context of the game for the Chiefs defense.
It just doesn't happen nearly often enough. And in the NFL today, when it is so offense friendly, when it is so pass happy, you need to be able to take the ball away, because play in and play out, it is very hard to have a truly successful defense with any sort of regularity without being able to take the ball away. The teams that have the best turnover differential in the NFL right now, would you say Philly's got a good defense?
I'd say they have a great defense.
Dallas, same thing.
Outstanding defense.
Minnesota's, I think their defense is good.
Yeah.
I would say it's good. Baltimore,
usually pretty good. Maybe not to their standard, but it's still a good defense.
The next 2 on the list, the Chargers, they're actually not very good defensively, and the 49ers. Yeah, they're pretty good. Other teams on there. The Steelers, yeah, their problem is offense, not defense. The Bengals, yeah, their defense is pretty good. We've seen that Titans defense. The Patriots, all these teams, they take the ball away. The Chiefs don't do that nearly enough. So to me, it's even a more hyper-specific version of step up and make a big play. It's take possession away. Get the ball back. Give another chance to Patrick Mahomes in the offense, or at least take away a chance near the end of the game from an opposing offense. They just haven't done that nearly enough this year. So find a way to get the ball back. That's the kind of big momentum shifting play that I'm looking for. The other thing for me, you've got 5 games against 4 bad teams. Technically 5 if you count the Broncos twice. You should dominate the pass rush in the next 5 weeks. I want to see consistent production. Not, wow, they destroyed the Raiders offensively. They got 5 sacks in that game, and it ends up they're averaging, just over, almost 2 sacks a game over 3. Well, you got 5 in one game and 0 in the next 2. No, that's not going to fly. I want to see consistent production against worse quarterbacks and worse teams overall. That's what I'm hoping to see, because you've got to get something out of that pass rush. They were playing better for a several-week stretch during the winning streak. That 5-week stretch, they were playing much better on the defensive line and in the entire front 7. You finally play a good offense, gone. AWOL. Did nothing for you. So you've got to be able to get consistent production. I think confidence is a big part of getting after the quarterback. You've got to be able to find that against the rest of these teams. Like Davis Mills against Houston, you should have 6 sacks in that game. Maybe not 6. You should have 3+ and a bunch of pressures in that game. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to do that. Against the Raiders, where the Chiefs have often found a lot of success against getting after Derek Carr, you should be able to consistently put pressure on him in the backfield. If you can't do that in this next 5-game stretch, I'm going to be even more concerned about that unit once we get into the do-or-die games.
Yeah, the Denver offensive line is a sieve. They got a bunch of backups in there right now. They've been struggling to keep Russell Wilson upright, and Wilson doesn't move or run the way he used to. That's pretty well documented at this point. The Texans are woeful. Seattle's offensive line actually improved on the edges. They've got 2 rookie tackles that are having pretty good years, but they're still very much gettable on the interior pass rush. That's a game where I would expect Chris Jones to be very impactful specifically. But yeah, you want to see those plays because that's how you get a team behind the sticks, right? That's how you finish a drive on 3rd and long is you get the pressure, you get the sack. You force punch, you get the ball back in the hands of your offense. And we know that if you give that offense enough chances to score, they're going to put a number on the board that's too big for most other teams. So that is critical, is the defense putting the offense in position to score more. Stops on 3rd down, putting them behind the chains, behind schedule earlier in downs, and then absolutely taking the ball away. And those bonus possessions that the Chiefs have been giving up, make those bonus possessions that Patrick Mahomes and company get to have and try and score.
Of the top 11 most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL, the Chiefs will play someone in the top 11 in 4 of the next 5 weeks. They'll play Russell Wilson twice. He's been sacked 37 times this year. They will play Geno Smith, who the young tackles are really good for Seattle. I like them a lot. He has been sacked, however, 31 times this year. That is 6th most in the league. And then 11th is Davis Mills of Houston,
who has his job back.
Yes, he had been benched for Kyle Allen. And then Lovie Smith said, oh, yeah, it's Kyle Allen. So they went back to Davis Mills, who, to be fair, is also pretty much just Kyle Allen. Like, there's not really a whole lot of difference there. And they're going to be replaced by Bryce Young or CJ Stroud next year anyway, so it doesn't really matter long-term for them. A lot of guys who get sacked, and I know that's not just offensive line. Part of that can be on the quarterback. There's coverage elements to sacks as well. I know it's a somewhat dependent statistic. You should be able to pressure these guys a lot. I don't have the pressure numbers in front of me. Russell Wilson's been under pressure constantly all year. Be able to do that. If you can't do it against lesser teams, how am I supposed to expect that you're going to have that picked up by the time we get to better offensive lines and better quarterbacks in the postseason? That's what I need to see. Is there anything offensively that changes? I think it's easy to point to the red zone. I'm iffy about the red zone. Hey, they went 3 for 4 in the red zone against the Bengals this past week. It was 1 for 6 the week prior, 1 for 5 technically. I don't know that I'm especially worried about that regard. I feel like for the offense, it simply comes down to you just got to play 4 quarters. I mean, that's really all you want to see. But you're going to end up playing 5 games. You might not need to play 4 full quarters.
Just continued ability to run the ball effectively when you need to run the ball, when the opponent is going to give you the run. I guess that would be the one thing. I think the running game is in a good place right now since Isaiah Pacheco has taken over. It's a good run blocking offensive line. We know that. So the offensive line play and the play of the running backs and being able to run when that is the best option, either when you're holding a big lead or when teams decide they want to drop 8 in pass coverage. We'll see who's going to do that. With Denver, I think they're going to be pretty content to rush 4. They've actually, it's pretty good Denver defense that Kansas City is going to see this week. It'll be not in full. They're missing some guys through injury, but you still got Patrick Surtain, who's a great player. You still got Justin Simmons, one of the underrated safeties in the league. You still got some good pass rushers. That'll be a challenge, but you're getting looks that'll allow you to run the ball, stay committed to that run, and run the ball effectively. And the Chiefs have shown an ability to do that. They got to continue to show that.
It'll be Chiefs-Broncos coming up on Sunday. Chiefs, I don't even look at what the spread is for this game. I just figure it's going to be a blowout. It is, for what it's worth, checking over at FanDuel right now. The Chiefs are favored by, and waiting for this to load. Remember, the Broncos are so awful that the NFL said, yeah, let's take Patrick Mahomes out of prime time. Just keep that in mind for this game. The Chiefs on the road are favored by 9.5 points.
Yep.
If this isn't the ultimate get-right game for everyone, you've got some issues.
You'd like to think there'd be a little catharsis this week, right? Just like 60 minutes of really good football and put it beyond doubt against an opponent that say this about the Broncos. They've been in a lot of close games this year. They haven't won a lot of them because they can't score, but they've been in a lot of close games. They've been able to keep games pretty close. This would be an opportunity, I think, for the Chiefs to just pound somebody. An opportunity I guess he kind of had it against the Rams. This could look similar to the Rams game, honestly.
Okay.
I think it could look like that in some ways where, a 16-point win feels both fair and not quite accurate to how the game went down. It could be a very frustrating two-score win in that way. But there is an opportunity, I think, that with this Bronco team that's just put a roll of stamps on the season. There's a chance to just bury him.
Which I think all of us would enjoy. I know I would enjoy
me
that
especially.
I never hated the Broncos until like 2 years ago when all their fans started getting uppity about Aaron Rodgers, and then I suddenly really wanted them to fail.
So you met Bronco fans,
yeah. It's like okay,
and it soured you on them. Now do I make way more sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I really I kind of enjoy. I liked their offenses when Peyton Manning was around. I loved Jake Plummer when I was a kid. No, it got very annoying very fast. So I would certainly enjoy a burial coming up on Sunday. We'll preview that game more later on in the show when Mitch Holthus joins us for our weekly conversation. Right now, though, we've got to take a break. We'll come back, play a little either or over under here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan with you here on 580 Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're here with you until 6 o'clock. Rick Peterson of TopSports.news is going to join us here in a few minutes for our Envista Credit Union High School Whiparound. But first, we've got some either or over under, and I've got an over under for you, Dan. It's just a regular game line over-under.
Okay.
Army Navy from Philadelphia, 2:00 kickoff on Saturday. Navy is favored in the game by 2.5. The over-under is 32.5 points. The under has hit a whopping 16 years in a row for the Army-Navy game. Does it go under again? 32.5 points.
Man, neither Army or Navy are particularly good.
No, real quick, just to that point, Army is 5-6. Even with a win, they are ineligible for a bowl game this year. They did not get a waiver to play in a game. They have too many FCS opponents. Navy is 4-7.
Yeah, so neither team particularly good. When you watch the service academies, because they all run the triple, it's the big plays almost feel like an accident sometimes, especially when the teams are kind of middling teams, when they're not as good. Like when the teams are good, like when Air Force plays a really good Navy team or something like that, then it's pretty high-level football, just looks different because it's the triple. I will take the under here because who am I to buck with tradition and decide that this is going to be the year? Why not 17 in a row, the under in the Service Academy game?
The line opened at 34.5. It has been bet down 2 full points in the last few days. I'm going to go with the under as well. I do think it will trend under. You don't have a whole lot of scoring in these games ever, and I don't know why this year would be any different. This does feel like a game, though, when you've got two teams that run offenses like this. Like, you do need to make changes with your coaching staff a little bit more regularly. And I know that sounds odd because both Jeff Monken and Ken Niumatalolo have found a lot of success with their programs on an individual level. But I think things have kind of run their course with Navy under Ken N. As much as I like Niumatalolo as a coach, Monken at Army, I mean, they knew he had a foot out the door a couple of years ago. His name has come up for a bunch of other jobs. I would not be surprised if there's a change made there at some point in the next year or two as well. I feel like you just need to add a new wrinkle. Do it out of the gun. Do something a little bit different with it. Go back to a more traditional wishbone instead of the flex bone. Just something different. Otherwise, it does get a little stale.
A texter on the Big O Tires text line from the 785 says the forecast does not call for any inclement weather, which is a bummer. Army and Navy should always be played in a snow globe. It just feels right.
Have you seen the uniforms for this year's game?
One of them wearing the the NASA uniforms, or did I imagine that? Was
yes,
somebody else?
You are correct. Navy is wearing space uniforms.
Yes.
They're fine. Army is also wearing uniforms that I believe honor the World War II 1st Armored Division, the old Ironsides. I like Army's better than Navy's this year. I'm going to be honest. Navy looks like knockoff Patriots uniforms. At least the uniforms. The helmets are different, but I would lean Army for this year's uniform battle. I'm a Navy guy, though. I always root for Navy.
Yes, I never really have a rooting interest. The Air Force is my favorite Service Academy football team.
Okay, that's fair. My grandpa, my mom's dad, served in the Navy in World War II. My grandpa, on my dad's side, served in the Army Air Corps, now Air Force.
Wow.
But I was closer to my mom's dad, so we root for Navy.
Yeah, my father-in-law was a Marine. So
there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go for my over-under today. There is a persistent rumor that former Dallas Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett is a finalist for the Stanford job. Stanford, of course, losing their head coach, David Shaw, who announced his resignation immediately following this past season. They are in the market for a new head man. Jason Garrett, former Cowboys head coach, longtime NFL player, graduate of, he went to Princeton, correct? Yep,
yeah.
Princeton. I was going to say Penn. I knew that was wrong. Princeton grad, knows a little something about schools with high academic standards. Over under 3.5 years. If Jason Garrett were to become the Stanford coach, that he stayed at Stanford.
Under with a single caveat. Stanford just doesn't care and doesn't want to spend the money for a buyout. That's the only way he could make it more than 3.5 years. Here's a trivia question over under for you. Over under 0.5 number of years Jason Garrett has ever in his life coached at the college level.
That's an under.
That is an under. He is at least Herm Edwards 30 years ago had spent 2 years as a defensive backs coach in college. Jason Garrett has never once coached in college.
He had some legitimate interest in the Duke job when that was open this past cycle. That obviously went to Mike Elko. Pretty good hire.
Great hire.
Pretty good hire there for Duke. But that, I think, shows you that he's sincere about wanting to get into college coaching and wanting to be at a place where academics are maybe the top priority beyond football, which would square with his Ivy League background. I don't know what making it work looks like at Stanford. It's never going to be what it was when Jim Harbaugh had him rolling. Like
multiple Rose Bowls in a very short period of time. Yeah.
They didn't make a lot of Andrew Lucks. Okay.
No.
They made one of those and he ended up going to Stanford. I don't know, even as the face of the Pac-12 changes, that Stanford is going to be a year in, year out, real competitive team. Their future might look more like Vanderbilt, might look more like Duke in football than what their recent past looks like. And if that's the case, Jason Garrett, if we know anything, can deliver mediocrity. Why can't he do that at Stanford? That might be acceptable. I'd take the over. I think he'd be there quite a while if they hired him.
Interesting. Do we know that he can recruit?
We have no idea if he can recruit.
Do we know that he has? I mean, he was in the NFL for a long time. Does he have connections at the college level? Guys will come coach for him?
We have no idea if he has any of those, no.
I just think it would come down to, he coached in the NFL. I'm sure it's fine. We have money to spend elsewhere, like on our sailing team.
Yeah, well, a lot of it would depend on how he took to the college aspects of coaching college football, the recruiting, the fact that it's a 365-day-a-year job being a college football coach, in some ways, unlike the NFL, with regards to the demands on a year-in, year-out, day-in, day-out basis.
That's true. That's a very good point. We've got to take a time out, but when we come back on the other side of this break, it's time for the Envista Credit Union High School Whiparound with Rick Peterson. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. Peterson covers prep sports in Topeka and Shawnee County better than anybody else. You can find his work over at TopSports.news. You can find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And he joins us every single Thursday at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour for the Envista Credit Union High School Whiparound here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol, if I'm not mistaken, you are catching some high school hoops down in Emporia right now.
I certainly am, yeah. It's halftime at the girls' game.
And it is the Hayden Wildcats in action right now, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, against Spring Hill.
Yes, so
it's Spring Hill 36, Hayden 23 at the half.
While we have the Hayden Lady Wildcats on the brain, Carvel Reynoldson's group, what has stood out to you about that program so far this year? A little bit of a different look. A lot of players back from last year, but they're two veteran leaders, Carly Stuckey and Macy Smith, both having graduated. What stands out to you about Hayden so far?
Well, they got off to a slow start. I mean, Spring Hill went up 17-2 and 23-4. But since then, Hayden has really fought back. And 13's not I think it's still manageable if you get it to like 6 by the end of the third quarter. But I did see some good signs in the second quarter. Lauren Sandstrom's come on, and she's already got 9 points. Meyer has 10, so they're coming around.
While we are waiting to preview the games coming up tomorrow and across the weekend here in the city, I do want to ask, is any result or any performance, have any of them really surprised you to this point through the first 2 days of the season?
I don't know that it surprised me. I wanted to see what some teams had. I've got to see Seaman twice, and, they lost a lot off that team, and they're without Aaron Davis still. So I wanted to see them. I actually have been pretty impressed with them. I was really impressed with Topeka West the other night against Seaman. Of course, when Xavier Alexander scores 31 and hits 5 threes, you're probably going to be impressed. But Malachi Berg had 21 and 9, so they look good. I mean, they missed the guy that had 25 a game last year, Elijah Brooks, but they impressed me.
I was going to ask about that matchup between Seaman and Topeka West earlier in the week, and we'll get to more on the Chargers here in a moment. That'll be our game of the week coming up tomorrow. But do those still look like two teams that are going to be vying for, and now it's a new league, obviously, moving to the United Kansas Conference, but even with all that those two teams lost between Mr. Basketball in the state of Kansas for Topeka West and all those seniors for Seaman, do those still feel like two programs that are going to be battling at the top of the UKC this year?
Well, you always got to start with Baser, Linwood, and DeSoto, and I think they're still going to be good. Baser has a Washburn graduate that's already come out of the gate with 24 against Shawnee Heights, so those will be. But yeah, I think they can be. Brendan, it's really a little early to tell too much. I always like to see, by early to mid-January, I think a lot more than you do now. Teams start kind of shrinking their rotation and things like that. But definitely Seaman and West can challenge in the UKC.
We're talking to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. It's our Envista Credit Union High School Whiparound here on 580 Sports Talk. Go follow Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And, of course, you can check out all of Pistol's phenomenal work covering our local teams over at TopSports.news. I mentioned this already, but coming up tomorrow night, our 580 Preps high school basketball game of the week doubleheader will take us to the Charger Dome. We've got Topeka West taking on Shawnee Heights tomorrow night. We'll start with the boys game, Pistol. How do you like the matchup between those two legendary coaches, Rick Bloomquist and Ken Darting, and their two squads matching up tomorrow night?
Well, I'm really looking forward to it. I've seen West. I have not seen Heights. I'm really looking forward to seeing them. And, Coach Darting's teams always play great defense. So, I think they will, obviously they saw what happened Tuesday night, so they'll probably be in the face of those, Alexander and those shooters. But I think it went down to 2 free throws at the end last year, and I think it will again. I mean, I think it'll be close again.
Speaking of close games, on the girls' side of that matchup, those are two teams that the last 2 years have played extremely close games. It was Shawnee Heights in overtime, winning at the Birdcage last year. What do you make of the way those two girls' teams will go head-to-head? Because Shawnee Heights has been solid so far, up and down. Topeka West still looking for its first win in this young season. What do you make of that matchup on the girls' side?
Well, I think West is better. I even though they got beat by a very, very good Seaman team the other night, I think they're better. I think Heights is better. So I think here we go again. I think it'll be another pretty close game. West has to slow down Dobie and some of those girls, but Rottinghouse had a great game the other night. But if they can keep it pretty low scoring, I think it'll be a good game.
You mentioned them just a moment ago. We've already talked about the Seaman boys a little bit, but the Seaman girls, head coach Matt Tinsley in his 6th year now, they are a defensive machine. They have been really over the course of his entire tenure. But if they can score a little bit, they can play with absolutely anybody in the area, anybody in the state. And it really does feel like they've got a couple of young players. Anna Becker, who was last year's Centennial League Freshman of the Year, or Newcomer of the Year, I should say. Maddie Gregg this year has played really well in her freshman debut. You still got Taylon Stahlbomber, among others, who can score. That Seaman team, to me, Pistol, feels like it is really primed for some greatness this year. Do you get the same kind of feeling from that Lady Vikes team?
Yeah, no, I really like them. And, Maddie Gregg gives them another scorer, which you can never have too much scoring. So I think they're poised to be one of 5A's best teams.
We're talking to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk for our Envista Credit Union High School Whiparound. Let's stay on the girls' side of things, Pistol. We haven't talked about the Topeka High girls too much yet through the last 2 weeks under first-year head coach Brittany Redmond. What do you think the outlook is for Topeka High this year? Obviously, there have been some changes with that program, changing from Hannah Alexander, who moved down to Andover Central, switching to Brittany Redmond, the Topeka High graduate, who, when I talked to her on Monday, she said, hey, there's a lot of things that I want to, leave her own mark on the program, having been coming from the college ranks to coach. What do you make of their trajectory this year? There's still plenty of talent, but obviously some changes as well.
No, since a tough loss in the opener to a good Wamego team, they've routed 2 straight opponents. So I think they're going to be fine. Kiki Smith's a good place to start, and she's going to kind of set the table for them. And then I think they got some other girls that can score, and so I think they're still going to be one of the better teams in the area.
And sticking with the 6A girls, too, I've got to ask about Washburn Rural, who went out to Hayes and went 1-2 to start the season this past weekend. And talking to Kevin Muff earlier this week for our coaches club, he said, hey, I actually think we played better in every game. We also played really tough opponents in games 2 and 3 out there at the Hayes City Shootout. How surprised were you, Pistol, to see those results for the Washburn Rural Junior Blues coming off that state title at the end of last season?
Well, I think they're still going to be fine. I never downplay a Kevin Borderwick team, and I think they're still going to be fine. But I also think, losing Jada Ingram, who was a front last 2 games, but in some years, Kevin Borderwick's teams have started a little slow, and then by January and February, they're really, really good. And I think that could be the case. They got to come up with some more scoring. And if they do that, I think they'll be fine.
Pistol, before we switch over to a couple of other sports that we want to preview for the upcoming season that have already gotten underway, I've got to ask, where are you headed to for basketball tomorrow night?
With you. I'll be with you.
That's what we like to hear. We'll see you at the Charger Dome then coming up tomorrow night. As we're talking to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, it's the Envista Credit Union High School Whiparound here on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol, there are a couple of other sports that I would love to get to here real quick before we let you go, and I know things are picking up down there in Emporia. I did want to ask about a couple of different sports we talked about earlier on the show this week with our Athletes of the Week. Wrestling, both boys and girls. On the girls' side, we talked to Addison Brocksterman of Washburn Rural, who said this is a little bit different. She feels they might actually be underdogs this year because Dodge City has a really good program coming back for 6A girls wrestling. What does the city outlook look like on the girls' mats this year, Pistol?
Well, you talked about it. I mean, Rural's always the team to start with, and they're still going to be very, very good. And, they probably like playing that underdog role, but they're still going to be one of the best teams there is by come February.
And on the boys' side as well, what are some of the headlines we should be paying attention to?
Oh, well, you start with the 2-time defending champion, Rural, and then Shawnee Heights is always really good. and they're going to be really good again. So those are the two to start with.
On the swimming side of things, or in the pool, maybe we should say, I feel like of all the sports that we cover all year round, Pistol, I feel like we don't give enough shine here on our segment to the swimmers around the city. So I'd love to talk about them real quick here. On the boys side of things, sticking there, we talked to Luke Perkins of Shawnee Heights earlier in the week. He had a tremendous start to the season at the Topeka West Invitational. What does the outlook look like for the T-Birds and for some of the other best swimmers in the city?
Well, Washburn Rural is the defending Centennial League and city champion. I think it's 3 years in a row on both, and I think they're gonna be good again. They're young, they're still young, but they're gonna be good. Shawnee Heights is gonna be good. Shawnee Heights has probably as good of quality at the top for the individual events as anybody. They just lack a little depth to go for the team crowns, but they're going to be very good. Seaman's always good, and I think those three are really good to start with.
Pistol, last question I've got for you. Were some free throws just being shot a moment ago?
I was trying to be quiet.
Well, Pistol, we will let you go. I know you got plenty of basketball to cover today. We'll see you tomorrow night at Topeka West. Rick Peterson from TopSports.news joins us every single Thursday for the Envista Credit Union High School Whiparound. Appreciate the time, Pistol. We will talk to you next week.
Okay, thank you.
That is Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. Appreciate Pistol still taking time for us while he's covering a game.
Yeah, he went into Vern Lundquist at the Masters voice there during the free throws, and I'm sure that's appreciated by everybody there. So that's a veteran.
That's awesome. Appreciate Pistol joining us, and you'll get a great recap from him of the game we have coming up tomorrow night on TopSports.news. We will be there live, though, at the Charger Dome at Topeka West High School for our 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Shawnee Heights taking on Topeka West. Those two league rivals once again, now in the United Kansas Conference. The girls' game will tip at 5:45. So that's 2 weeks in a row. We've got a 5:45 start for our girls' game. The boys' game will follow 20 minutes after. So pregame coverage will begin at approximately 5:30 immediately after 580 Sports Talk. So join myself and the coach, Larry Latimer, tomorrow right here on 580 WIBW for the 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Should be a fun one. Those two teams, both boys and girls, have played some really competitive games over the last couple of years. Real quick, Dan, before we get to the end of this hour, for those of you who are watching on the YouTube live stream, which hopefully you have subscribed at this point, if you haven't, now is a great time to go subscribe to the YouTube Sports on 580 WIBW. You can even go to youtube.com /@ sports on 580. That's the direct link to get to our page. We do have a question from our guy Dan on the or in the comment section. What hat are you wearing today?
Today, this is the we'll try and turn it and not scratch the microphone so everybody can see it. This is the Rocket City Trash Pandas, the AA affiliate of the Los Angeles Angels, based out of Huntsville, I believe.
I believe it is Huntsville.
Huntsville,
City,
Alabama. Yeah, Rocket City. So, yes, the trash panda. So you got the raccoon, you got a tail. It looks like he's going to space. I don't know.
A trash panda is a raccoon, by the way, for those not in the know.
For those who maybe aren't online enough to get that very specific reference, yes, a raccoon is a trash panda. So, because they kind of look like pandas and they like trash. So that's the genesis of that. And that's that. I think it's a cool hat.
My hat, not quite as exciting. Mine's just my Bulls hat. We stink, though. We are absolute buns. Won last night, though. So,
hey, now.
That's something. So if you want to see the hats, the get-ups, and just watch the show as you listen, you can do so on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. Right now, though, we need to take a break. We'll get to our national and local news here at the top of the hour. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of the show, Fulton is going to join us right at the top of the hour for this week's edition of Crosstalk. We've also got our What Is Wrong With You, a new winner for the week as of yesterday. The insane Olive Garden manager from Overland Park has stepped up and took the crown from Chris Christie's niece, so we'll get to that. Plus, we look back on the 2020 NFL draft and the quarterbacks and how they will continue to shape the AFC and the entire NFL, and who should have been the first quarterback taken in that class. All that and more is coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thank you so much for joining us. If you missed any of the first hour of the show, including our conversation with Rick Peterson from TopSports.news, just head to the website, 580WIBW.com. Hover over the podcasts tab. It's right in the middle of the page. And then when the menu pops up, click on 580 Sports Talk. And that is where you will find the hour-by-hour podcast breakdown of the show. Coming up later this 4 o'clock hour on the program, we've got today's What Is Wrong With You. We'll see if our two news stories can take down the insane Olive Garden manager. And then we will look back at the 2020 quarterbacks. If they were being redrafted, in what order would they come out today? We'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on. Of course, we are taking your texts on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. And you can chime in the comments section on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is our YouTube channel. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. If you haven't yet, you are welcome to at any point. And you'll be able to see all of the videos that we post, all of our live streams. You'll be able to see when a live stream is scheduled, all right there on your YouTube homepage. So go click that subscribe button today. Sports on 580 WIBW is the account. Right now, though, it is time for Crosstalk this week as we welcome in our good friend Fulton Castor, host, of course, co-host of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton. How you doing, Fulton? How you feeling? You were very sick earlier in the week.
I was feeling very bad to begin this week on Monday and Tuesday. I am feeling infinitely better compared to how I began my week.
Just the flu, you said?
That is what the doctor I saw told me. And you know what? He went to medical school. I did not, so I'm going to believe that he was correct.
I've never had the flu.
I haven't either. In almost 27 years, I've never had the flu. Never gotten a flu shot, even though I've been told by many people to do it. I don't like needles, so therefore I didn't.
I've been putting off the flu shot this year. I'm a fairly newcomer to the flu shot game. I've been putting that off bad. I need to get my ducks in a row.
I don't know if I ever got one when I was a little kid. I remember after I got my my diabetes diagnosis, they said, yeah, you're at higher risk for flu complications, so you have to get one. I got one once, and I was like, screw it. So then I never got one again until last year when I got a COVID booster, and they said, do you want to do your flu shot too? And I said, I guess.
Two for one.
And my one arm already hurts. Might as well have it even out. So I did that again this year. I got the last booster, and they're like, do the flu shot too, I guess.
See, if there was one thing that the COVID year of 2020 revealed to me, as you know, we were all like inside, and then when we weren't inside, doing the mask thing and staying far apart from people, and then like I didn't get a whole winter went by and I didn't get sick, and I was like, this whips. I love not being sick. I should take more preventative measures just in general to not be sick. I should try harder to be sick less often. That rules. So that was what convinced me. Let me get on this flu shot game, because I had been ducking that for my whole life, and I said, let me get on this flu shot game. I need to get back on it. I need to set an appointment and get that done.
I just figured, like,
it's too late for our boy Fulton.
Yeah, a little late for me. I cannot lie. This might be the thing that pushes past my fear of needles and moves me to being a flu shot guy, because this stunk. Like it was my Monday was one of the worst days I might have been my worst year of 2022. I had a horrible day.
I got sick over the summer, and I missed a day at work, and I had a fever. Awful. Like I don't ever want to be sick ever again. I just can't handle it. I never get sick. Like I'll get a cold.
I'm very similar to you. I don't get sick.
Like I'll get a cold once a year, but I hadn't been actually sick since I was probably like 15. It was awful. And I'm sure I was miserable to deal with, which was unfortunate for my wife who lives with me. Not fun for her. So I apologize that you had to deal with that. I can sympathize. I also would not want to be sick. By the way, before we get to actual sports conversation, Dan, we had a comment or a question for you in our YouTube comments.
Yeah, I saw this.
Again, Sports on 580 WIBW is the YouTube account. Asking, how many hats do you own?
So I was going over the number in my head. I think it's between 20 and 25 that are like an active part of my rotation. Although one of them is just a hat I wear when I play golf.
Okay.
'cause that
Yeah,
that
gets
counts.
sweaty and
Yeah.
grody. But no, I think it's like 22 or 23 that I have is like obviously it's hard to have a regular rotation when there's that many.
Mhm.
But I think that's the number, about 23 different hats.
I think I counted, to respond to a Twitter question one time, I think I was at 36.
Ooh.
I think I've got 2 different racks in my closet to hold them all up.
So I am in the between stages of my life where I am starting to succumb to the allure of what is known as the dad hat.
Mm-hmm.
So like the not the new era fit is like the one I'm wearing today, my Rocket City Trash Pandas hat. This is a new era on field fitted. I've been really about those my whole life. I played baseball. This is what you wear on the field. So this is the kind of hat that I like to wear. It's the kind of hat that I seek out. I like the fitted caps. I'm not a big fan of the adjustables, the snapbacks. It just doesn't do it for me. I don't like feeling my hair poking out of the back. You say, how do you feel your hair poking out of the back? I just do. Okay. It bothers me. I don't like it. I like hats that fit my head. Well, the dad hat is a little more, it's got the pre-curved brim.
Yep.
And they conform to your head a little better. And I've started to grudgingly realize that, those are actually more comfortable. And maybe for my advanced age, I'm older than both of you guys, a little bit more stylish for me as I advance into my late 30s. So I'm starting to make that transition, and most of my hats will probably be the dad hat variety by the time I turn 40.
We have a texter from the 785 who says, when one hears the question being asked as cats, it changes the amazement of the answer when they realize the question was about hats.
I only have 2 cats.
Yeah, I have 0, not 36.
I only have 1. I do though have I think I'm at 13 or 14 hats.
Yeah, you're a low-key hat guy too.
Yeah,
I think we all. Jake is the least hat guy of anyone.
Jake's the least hat guy, at least among the sports guys for sure. Then there's us 3 who have a pretty decent collection widespread between us. We hit kind of all corners of what you would want to buy a hat for.
I wear one every day, everywhere I go. I wear one for come do the show. I don't when I do a game. And I don't want to have to dress up for something, but otherwise I have one on every day.
The other thing too, the other advantage of the dad hat is they are a little bit more, they're lower profile. So I think they kind of go better. Like I feel like I could wear one of those. Like I could just go into a press box wearing, a nice pair of slacks and a polo shirt or a quarter zip and like my, like a low profile, dad hat rather than one of these fitted caps.
Yeah.
So the dad hats, they feel like a more professional kind of hat. That's a really stupid way to put it, but
no, I get it.
I feel that though.
It's just male accessorizing.
It basically
like women do a million different things. Guys are like, ooh, what hat am I going to wear? I'm going to a concert tonight. I got to figure like what hat do I rock
goes with
the get up.
I will add this on the last thing on the hat comments here. I've known Brendan and I, of course, went to college together. I'm not kidding you. I could not tell you how often I interact with Brendan before I ever saw him without a hat.
Yeah.
It might have been over a year of interaction before I ever saw Brendan without a hat on his head.
Every day. And the class, meetings.
And I remember the first time I saw you without, I was like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah, I've been an everyday hat guy to the point where, like, when I was a kid, I had really blonde hair, and now it's not blonde.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I had really, really blonde hair when I was a kid.
I definitely got spooked when I was younger by the, if you wear a hat every day, you're going to lose your hair. Like, well, I don't know if y'all know anything about the thickness of my hair. I just got it cut, and it's already, like, hella thick.
No, that is a strong hairline.
Yeah. It's intense.
As Jameis Winston would put it. That hairline is strong.
My, the men in my family, at least the ones I can think of, I don't remember what my paternal grandpa's hair was like. My dad, his hair has thinned out over time, but he's not really lost a lot of it. He's still got, he doesn't have the bald spot in the back or anything. My mom's dad had hair for his entire life. So I'm not really worried about that. I will dye my hair though. Like the minute I see it start to turn gray, I will be dyeing it.
I think I'm going to look awesome with like gray hair. I think I'm going to be a real silver fox.
Go with a little salt and pepper action.
Honestly, I can't wait. I hope it happens in like my early 40s. Oh, it happens tomorrow. It'll be awesome.
I'm sure
I'll be one foxy grandpa. Let me tell you.
Wow.
Another hat you can get.
I'm sure he's not listening, so he won't care that I say this. My dad was like fully gray by the time he was just into his early 30s. And I do not want that. I will diet. I don't care if
I
that's
think
vain.
my dad's gray started coming in fully. It started beard first, then went to his head. Oh, in his 40s, his beard was so grayed out.
Yeah.
That man's fully gray at this point.
Well, lucky for me, I can't really grow one. I just get like stuff on my face. As for actual sports.
Yeah, as for sports for the sports talk show.
10 minutes later.
Also, shout out to our guy Dan, not this Dan, other Dan on the YouTube comments who says he's also an everyday hack guy. So
that's what's up.
Shout out to Dan. What is the one thing for the Chiefs in the next 5 weeks? They play bummy teams in the next 5 weeks. They got the Broncos twice, the Raiders, the Texans, the Seahawks. The Seahawks sliding, and they're still by far the best team that the Chiefs will face over the next 5 weeks to end the regular season. What is the one supreme thing above anything else you have to see from the Chiefs to have your maximum level of confidence going into the postseason? Or alternately, is it impossible to get there because they just play bummy teams?
For me, even though it's going to be against bummy teams, I need to see a complimentary pass rush exist again.
That's where I was.
Because you were
too.
starting to see it before the Bengals game. And then against the Bengals sat there and said, Mike Dana, Carlos Dunlap, George Karlaftis, Frank Clark, Colin Saunders, all you guys that are not named Chris Jones, you get one-on-one matchups. Go win them, we dare you. And the Bengals won that dare easily. They punked nearly every other member of that defensive line. They did. And that needs to be how blunt it should be put. Because they had one-on-one opportunities as long as they could. And they could not win them. I get they're going to play some real crappy teams over these next 5 games with some bad offensive lines mixed in. You need someone not named Chris Jones to step up. Because it's not even about getting home when you face the better teams in the playoffs. When only one guy's winning in a pass rush perspective, it is so much easier to scramble away because the escape valves, the escape lanes are so much clearer. It is harder to scramble when multiple guys are winning, even if not multiple guys are getting home. But when multiple guys are crushing the pocket from multiple angles, it's harder to escape. We always thought about how, man, the Chiefs never get Joe Burrow down. It's because only Chris Jones is affecting him. So when Jones gets the pressure, he just waltzes to his left or his right or up or back or whatever. And because no one else is winning, he just gets away. That's the thing I need to see, because no matter, even if it's against bad teams, you can still get something, at least the pass rush getting some juice. Because if they can't even generate a pass rush against bad teams and bad offensive lines, then there's no reason to believe that it's going to be fixed come the playoffs. No reason.
And I was saying, I need to see it week after week. Like, it can't be, well, they did it once against the Broncos and they did it once against the Texans. I need it weekly.
I don't care if they get 8 sacks against Denver on Sunday and they make Russell Wilson regret everything he's done and go crying home to Sierra. I don't care. If they can't do that against every other team, the other 4 games.
Which bathroom do you think he'll go and cry in? Which of the 12?
Second upstairs master.
So
I don't.
There are multiple master bathrooms in this case.
Oh yeah. For Russell,
do you think they're all? 12. Do you think they're all en suites?
Here's my question: do you think they have
at least 3?
Do you think that they have their own private bathrooms? Like, oh, the one on the 3rd floor, that's Russell's. Sierra doesn't go in there.
I mean, maybe.
Do they have multiple kids?
I don't know.
3. I think Sierra had, Sierra had 1 from a previous relationship, at least 1. And I believe they have 2 together.
Okay.
I think is how that works.
Okay. Maybe there's a kid's bathroom, which is like the size of my apartment, probably.
Oh, probably.
I would not be surprised by that one bit.
Both of ours put together.
Yeah, right. I had a great question for Fulton, and I just totally blanked on it. I got so distracted by the hat conversation. It has completely... Oh!
Everything's derailed here.
Are the Chiefs going to go 5-0? In the next 5 weeks.
Was that a great question?
No, that's not, but it just popped into my head.
It's the next question.
The hat conversation really derailed everything.
It truly
totally changed where this segment was going.
It truly did. Honestly, at this point, I'm going to say yes, because I don't think they'll have a 1 seed locked up by the Raider game, so they'll have to play their starters. And so I picked them to win that one. I think Seattle will give them the toughest test. But that defense, it's got some good players.
They can't stop anybody.
That's the big thing, is overall.
They're going to give up a lot of points.
It is a sieve back there. And then they're not losing. They can't lose. Until I physically see Denver beat Patrick Mahomes, I will never believe Denver can win those games.
Yeah, I mean,
Until
that's
I
fair.
see it.
Can the Chiefs score 17 points? Because
Yes, and then they win.
the Broncos are criminally, it is prosecutable if the Broncos score more than 16 points in a game. I believe that was codified into like Colorado state law that they are not permitted to score more than 16.
Their high score was that first game they played with the Raiders this year,
Yeah, they
right?
had 20.
23.
They scored 23
They
against the Raiders. Lost that game naturally.
21 against the Jags in a win. And
Oh, did they get 21?
Yep,
Yeah,
they
okay.
did. And
They
those
did.
are their only 2 games over 16 points.
If they scored 24
This
points,
is an NFL team.
if they scored 24 points a game, and I know that's outlandish given everything going on with the Broncos.
They'd be undefeated.
No, they would have one loss.
Oh, they would still.
They
lose
would
the
be
Raider
11
game.
and 1.
They
They
would-
would have still lost that Raiders
If they
game.
scored 17 points a game, they would be 11 and 1.
They stink.
They're so bad.
17 points a game.
And look, and like the defense is getting fed up and beat up,
Rightfully so.
and
They've been getting fed up.
they're still playing at a pretty high level, but like there's but so much you can do when you know, oh, it's third down, better grab our helmets.
They also, I don't think, drafted especially well this year. Like their draft class, like Greg Dulcich has been okay.
Yeah, I think he'll be a good player.
Nick Bonito has his name called because he has to play a lot.
Mhm.
He was their first pick. He was the last pick of the second round. Other than that, I mean, it's just a lot of guys, like no one who really stands out. You need at least some young talent to step up, and they really haven't had that either.
Mm-hmm.
That is,
Yeah.
we put teams,
Well, the good news is they're going to have a top 5 pick next year. So, oh, wait a minute, no, they
Wait,
aren't.
Hold on, I'm hearing something.
Conflicting reports.
Breaking news. Wow, what's your parlay tonight? Thursday Night Football. We'll get to ours later on in the show before we talk to Mitch Holthus. What's
Man,
yours for
I
tonight?
don't even know what it's.
This game is so gross.
because it's Rams Raiders, right? I'll be brutally honest. I have not made one for this game yet.
Oh,
I
Uh-oh.
truly haven't. You can Jake and I had so much other stuff we were going on today. Jake LeBon also, as far as I know, has not publicly made one yet.
wow, what a coward.
But if you will give me a moment, I will build one right here, right on air. I'll build one. I will build a
Here,
good old fashioned same game parlay.
more pertinently,
Yes.
do you think Mayfield's going to play?
There's no way he can, right? It's at the playbook for like 2 days.
He got to Los Angeles on Tuesday night.
Like you're running JV team high school route concepts.
You know how to hand off to Cam Akers.
I mean, sure, I guess.
It's Sean McVay's playbook. We always used to say Sean McVay was just basically using Jared Goff like a PlayStation quarterback and just pushing the buttons, just telling him in his head, okay, this is play action, turn around, throw to the tight end. This play is play action. The X receiver will be open 5 yards, throw it to him. Don't go through progressions. Don't go through reads. Don't step up in the pocket.
Just
throw to this
memorize
guy.
the number.
Find your landmark and remember who your X is and throw.
Now, I will say, it would be very funny if the Raiders lost this game.
Oh, outrageously
I would
funny.
laugh very
Especially
hard.
because, quiet as it's been kept, they're playing really good football right
Yeah,
now.
they are. Well, it also helps to have
Well, they're
Josh
playing
Jacobs
winning.
playing out of his mind.
They're playing winning football. They're winning games right now. I don't know that they're playing spectacularly, but they are winning games.
Devontae Adams is also, by the way, still really good.
He's incredibly good.
Incredible, by the way. But also great proof that you don't need, like, wide receivers don't impact a game quite that much because he's been phenomenal and they're still not very good.
They're terrible. I will say a little parlay I'd put together here that I would put some wagering on. Give me Devontae Adams anytime touchdown.
Okay.
Give me Devontae Adams over 88.5 receiving yards.
Okay.
And give me Cam Akers over 44.5 rushing yards.
Just put 9 in the box. Just say, well, 2 defensive backs will guard however many receivers there are.
Yes.
Just stack the box the entire game.
Yeah, I don't think defenses are real scared of like Ben Skoranek.
No. If they were, this might be a very different season for the Los Angeles Rams.
Very different.
Fulton, what's coming up on Mic'd Up tomorrow?
We got more previewing mini games coming up this week. And obviously, we're going to take a look at Raiders and Chiefs. We'll look at that with Zach Stevens of DNVR. He's going to come on. We're going to look at KU and Missouri coming up on Saturday, a game I personally am going to enjoy as KU is going to win by 50-some points in Columbia because Missouri stinks. But we're going to preview that game as well. And, of course, we'll get you ready for Chiefs and Broncos with the Chiefs' keys to the game.
For the record, real quick before we let you go, I would also like KU to win by a lot. Do you know that Missouri is 9-0 and a top 50 Ken Palm team?
Yes.
Okay.
Listen, Missouri could be the number 2 team in the country. I'm going to keep making my comments because I hate Missouri.
I mean, I don't like them either.
I know it's not going to happen. I know it's going to be a close competitive game.
Okay.
I'm still going to say beat them by 50.
Self-actualization. I appreciate that. Bolton, we'll talk to you tomorrow at noon.
Talk to you guys tomorrow, guys.
Real quick, before we get to a break, an update from the Paul Terry Classic down in Emporia. The Hayden Lady Wildcats were down 12 going into the fourth quarter. That game is now in overtime. They stormed back to tie the game at 49 apiece.
Let's go.
Love that for Carvel Reynoldson's game.
Go.
That is
Showing some fight.
Tremendous. They were, after 3 quarters, down 44-31, then outscored Spring Hill in the fourth 18-5. How about that quarter for Carvel Reynoldson's group?
Big time.
We've got to take a timeout. What is Wrong With You is next on 580 Sports Talk. It's time to get to What Is Wrong With You on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Our current winner for the week, after taking over yesterday, the insane Olive Garden manager who had been fed up with her employees calling out of work. They had family things, illnesses, whatever it might be. So this lunatic said, if you're sick, come prove it to us. If your dog died, come prove it to us. You need to bring him in. That's the sentence. If your dog died, you need to bring him in and prove it to us. If it's a family emergency and you can't say, too bad, go work somewhere else. That's the manager of an Olive Garden.
Not anymore, she's not.
Well, was a manager of an Olive Garden. Do you think I want to be here until midnight on Friday and Saturday? No. I'd much rather be at home with my husband and dog, going to the movies or seeing family. But I don't. I'm dedicated to being here. That's tough.
We must protect this Olive Garden.
You now have plenty of time to hang out with your husband and your dog because you are unemployed. My story today is going to take us to, you'll never believe this, Dan, Florida.
How about that?
But it's a Chicago man in Florida vacationing with his girlfriend. A Chicago police officer was in Florida and was arrested on vacation early on December 5th after being caught urinating into an ice machine at a beachside bar. According to police, an employee of Jimmy B's Beach Bar in St. Petersburg was attempting to get ice out of the machine at 12:30 a.m. Nothing good happens after midnight, folks. What have I been saying for all these years? When he discovered 30-year-old Henry Capouch, or Capuch possibly, urinating on the ice in the ice machine. When the worker, by the name of Richard Cleese, asked Capouch to stop, the accused urinator cursed the man out and then shoved him multiple times, according to the arrest affidavit. Capouch subsequently shoved a security guard, according to the police. Upon arriving at the bar, which is part of the Beachcomber Resort, police found Capouch and his girlfriend on the sand nearby. Capouch was actively resisting arrest and was not obeying law commands while he was being detained. He was arrested for battery and disorderly conduct, which are both misdemeanors, and was bonded out of jail early on Monday morning after posting $650 bond. You'll never believe this part either, but the affidavit noted that he showed, quote, indication of alcohol influence. He's been a cop for 5 years, by the way.
Texter from the 785 on the Big O Tires text line puts it perfectly. Florida infected to Chicagoan.
Yeah, you can't come back now. This is patient zero.
Yeah, you got Florida all over him. And
congrats to Miramar. You're now going to get possession of this police officer.
That's a special kind of drunk, like the I'm just going to take a leak wherever I feel like drunk.
Yeah.
That's a level of incapacitation. That's like you're not far away from the phantom zone at that point.
Mm-hmm. I've got a friend who we were at a party one time in college who became that drunk. We were trying to come up with plans like, okay, we're all going to go get food. Everyone else is going to go sober up. We'll drive there, turn around. Hey, pal, you ready to go? Just all out, just urinating in the lawn. Like, oh, okay, cool. That's like, you remember that forever when it's your friends kind of drunk. When you're with your girlfriend and you're urinating in an ice machine at a bar, you've got beyond issues.
Yeah, you would think, of all people, a police officer would know that maybe it's not the best idea in the world to resist arrest.
You would think.
I know what people like me do to people like me.
Oh, my God. So that's my story for today. What do you have, Dan?
We are going to Electra, Texas, which is northwest of Dallas by a good ways, kind of right on the northern border of the state of Texas.
Right next to Carmen.
Where a woman made a special delivery to the police station in Electra. Multiple buckets of human waste.
Ew.
An officer at the Electra PD noticed someone putting something outside the police station at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, November 10th. The officer went outside and found 3 5-gallon buckets of what appeared to be human waste and saw a woman in an all-white hazmat suit with a yellow mask walking back to her vehicle. When asked what she was doing, the woman told the officer that the buckets were human waste. The word waste is in brackets here, so we can assume she used a word other than waste.
Yeah.
The buckets were human waste, and she was dropping them off. She then got in her vehicle and drove away. She left 15 gallons of human waste that weighed 50 pounds. Officers recognized the woman as the wife of the assistant fire chief of Electra, Texas. They contacted city administrators with the fire department. The woman called the city administrator and refused to pick up the bucket, saying it was not her problem. So the city administrator sent a wastewater employee to pick up the buckets. The woman has been charged with illegal dumping, a violation of the Texas Health Safety Code, and a Class B misdemeanor.
Man, that is disgusting.
Like, where do you get 50 pounds of human waste?
Why are you handling that much poop?
Like,
what could convince you to think, I'm going to mess around with all this defecation?
Is this a prank war between Electra PD and Electra FD?
It's the worst prank war if it is.
Yes, that is not that prank is not funny.
Man, this is gross. I'm not handling poop.
50 pounds.
So, and what were the receptacles these were in?
Buckets.
I mean, it's got to be pretty large buckets, you'd think.
5-gallon buckets.
Oh man, it's sloshing around. Ugh.
Like the paint buckets. Like if you were a youth and you played baseball, you're probably familiar with like those buckets that you put baseballs in.
The
And then-
orange Home Depot bucket.
yeah, like those orange Home Depot type. Yeah, you turn them over and you can sit on them and throw soft toss. Like those buckets. There is not a family around who did not have kids that played baseball that doesn't have one of those buckets full of baseballs somewhere in their basement.
Yeah. We had ours was not the big industrial bucket. We just had kind of a regular wash bucket, but yeah, full of baseballs.
Yep.
Wow. That's one of those things. Like I was reading about this the other day. Every family, every culture thinks they invented the large plastic bag full of smaller plastic bags. Like that's just something that everybody does.
Yeah, everybody does that.
Along with having the bucket of baseballs in the garage.
Every baseball family has the 5-gallon bucket of baseballs. Not every family has a 5-gallon bucket of human waste. Never mind 3 of them to put on the front door of the Electra Police Department. But I guess she's just built different.
Whoever left that much waste must have been built different. We've got some map disputes on the text line, Dan.
Yeah, I said northwest of Dallas. Our texter says west of Wichita Falls. Tomato, tomato.
I mean, technically, it is northwest of Dallas.
Yeah, due northwest. Yeah, due northwest.
Just a ways.
Yeah.
There's a Sonic there. That's all that pops up.
Very unsurprising. It's not a very big place. So it's like, I looked it up. It's like 3,000 people, something like that. Probably a little less.
Yeah, 3,100.
3,100 people. Okay. Yeah. Like everybody knows this story. This is the kind of thing, like if it happened to a police station in a larger place, like it might go unreported or underreported. No, everybody in Electra, Texas knows this story and knows probably personally the woman who did this. And has probably the same questions we have.
This is like the skeleton sex house that won last month. Like, now you're the woman who is transporting all the poop.
Yes, you were the woman hoarding the human excrement.
You're the poop lady now. Forever.
How did they get it in the buckets?
This is going to get gross if we talk. Like,
yeah.
It had to be like watery.
Some questions don't need answers.
That is filthy. Who you got for today?
Both really good stories, but like this woman came to have 50 pounds of human waste.
Yeah, man, that is gross. We have a 785 texter who says this is like the worst redneck prank gone bad. This is disgusting. I'll pick that one, but I do not think that beats the insane Olive Garden manager.
Yeah, that's going to be more fun to talk about moving forward.
Fact.
Yeah, sometimes you don't want to keep talking about 50 pounds of human waste. Sometimes a story like that can leave a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, yes, to say the least. So that is our winner once again, the insane Olive Garden manager. That advances on to tomorrow in our weekly championship in What Is Wrong With You. Let's take a break. We'll come back on the other side of this timeout. We'll talk a little bit about quarterbacks in the NFL, young quarterbacks in the NFL. Bill Barnwell of ESPN, he did a redraft of sorts. You were going to take the quarterbacks that came out in 2020. In what order would you take them this year? I think it's an interesting discussion. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. To our point from right before the break, Dan, about the buckets of baseballs, we've got a comment on our YouTube comments section that says, I have twin boys. I have like 9 buckets of baseballs.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. We had in our garage, and I mean, it's still up. It has just been emptied out over time and filled with other stuff. But because my parents live in the same house I grew up in. But we just had these shelves in the garage, and there was one shelf that was all the basketballs. There was one shelf that was baseball mitts and the bucket of baseballs. There was one that was like the outdoor non-sports toys. There was one with the footballs on it. It was very like one of the most organized parts of our house, but the baseball shelf was right in the middle with a big bucket of them. I think every family had that.
Yep. Baseballs of varying wear and tear. Some of them were good enough to play catch with. Others you just wanted to hit.
Yeah.
You had some with the fraying seams. You had some where like it was all the writing of it was smudged out. You had some that were like soft for some reason. Every now and again, you get the ones that were like, why is this squishier than others? Not like all the way squishy like a T-ball, but it's definitely not the same consistency as the rest of the balls. One of them might be real flat on the side, like just kind of flat, kind of funky. You go to the nearby middle school that had a backstop and swing the bat, take some batting practice for a while, and then go to 7-Eleven, get a Slurpee afterwards.
We grew up near a Catholic high school that had built a brand new baseball field when we were pretty young. And sometimes, I mean, it was only a block away from my house. And we'd walk over and we'd sometimes just find foul balls that were in the weeds or in the tall grass. And, oh, we got new baseballs.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't come claim these. So they belong to LaGrange Park, Illinois. And then subsequently me.
I am very excited to start my baseball bucket one of these days. I got a bit of a jump. I was vacationing in California with my family last summer, and we were staying. The hotel we were staying was across the street from the stadium where the Santa Barbara Foresters play.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about the NBC World Series in Wichita, you know who I'm talking about when I talk about the Santa Barbara Foresters, because they go to that thing every year and they win that thing every year, or just about every year, it feels like. But anyway, their home field was right across the street from the hotel we were staying at. They happened to be playing a couple of home games that week. And so like they would take batting practice and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably found half a dozen perfectly good baseballs that had been hit over the fence in batting practice. And I just pocketed them. So I've got these California Collegiate League baseballs in pretty good shape that are going to be a great start to my baseball bucket someday.
That's very funny. We did want to get to some NFL talk here. Bill Barnwell of ESPN put out a story today where he goes through all the quarterbacks, the notable quarterbacks who were taken in the 2020 draft. So Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and then Jordan Love. But he kind of skipped over Jordan Love, and understandably so. And he broke down the pros, cons, big moments, some key statistics, and all of that. And then caps off the story with a redraft. If you were to reorder these 4 stud young quarterbacks, in what order would they come off the board in a draft right now with the benefit of retrospect? He still says number 1 is Joe Burrow. He was the number 1 overall pick by the Bengals that year. Says he's got everything. Doesn't have a great arm relative to some of the greats in the NFL, but everything else he's got. He has Jalen Hurts as his next pick. Jalen Hurts was the 5th quarterback taken that year. It was Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Love, and then Jalen Hurts. He would take Hurts 2nd, then Tua 3rd, and then Justin Herbert 4th. That is the way he would order it.
As much as we have been critical, and I think rightfully so, of the circumstances surrounding Justin Herbert, none of which are really his fault. He's had injured wide receivers, and he is shackled to an offensive coordinator who I don't think plays to Herbert's strengths, and that's the most charitable way that I can talk about what I think of Joe Lombardi as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, he did not hire Joe Lombardi.
He is the only one of those quarterbacks to have not made a jump forward in year 3. With Tua Tagovailoa, it's a quantum leap forward to being, by some metrics, the best quarterback on a pass-for-pass basis, at least the most efficient in the NFL this year. For Jalen Hurts, it's a quantum leap forward as a passer. For Joe Burrow, it's a steady growth upwards for him. For Justin Herbert, he's kind of the same guy he was in year 1, year 2. And you would have expected maybe a leap for him in year 3. That doesn't mean he's not a good player, but the leap hasn't come for Herbert this year, which is an interesting way to look at it.
Where do you think the biggest growth has come for those other guys? Like, what do you think is the one thing that kind of defines how they have grown?
I think for Burrow, probably just comfort level processing. I mean, he's so good at processing what he sees. And the more he sees, the better he is at processing it. The more that defenses throw at him, the more game situations that he's in, the better he gets at that stuff. He seems to me like a really good learner of the position. And that's not to minimize his physical gifts, because those are there too. But I think, like, as far as all four of those guys, if there's just one guy who I'd want to lead, like I got 4 minutes, I got all my timeouts, and I'm just going to put him in the shotgun. He's just going to pinprick you to death and lead a game-winning drive. Burrow's the pick there. So that's my Burrow thought. For Tua, I think it's just better weapons and a better coach have enabled him to use his skill set more wisely. For Hurts, it's just strictly improvement as a passer, comfort level as a passer, as a thrower of the football.
I would agree with that. I would 100% agree with that. It also helps, too, that some of these guys have gotten really good receiver. I mean, really, all of them. Well, I don't know about Herbert. I don't know that Herberts are great by any means. Mike Williams is a nice player, although banged up all the time. Keenan Allen he hasn't had for much of this year, but has been a very solid receiver for a long time. Burrow's got superstars to throw to. Tua's got superstars to throw to. And at this point, A.J. Brown is also a superstar. Jalen Hurts has that guy to throw to. To have receivers like that early in your career, that's got to be a huge help. That's got to be massive. Would you order him in the same way, by the way?
That
Barnwell did? Burrow, Hurts, Tua, Herbert?
I would not. I would put Herbert ahead of Tua. And the reason I would have Tua last, even if he's could be argued to be having the best year of any of these guys, is I'm still worried about his long-term health.
Okay. I think that's fair.
I'm still a little worried about he's not quite as solidly built as the other guys. And I know Burrow's got the torn ACL in his past too, but between the hip for Tua and then the concussions earlier this year, that is a health history that is starting to become a little bit worrying for him. I'll put Herbert ahead of him. I still love the arm with Herbert. And
I get that.
I think there's going to be an offensive coordinator and a wide receiver that he gets one of these days that could just unlock him and he could go Super Saiyan and just be incredible.
You brought up an interesting point about this class, though, and I was trying to come up with a good comparison for them. Like, just how important for the NFL having this whole class of stars, frankly, is even though Herbert has not found that team success, a lot of people around the league love Justin Herbert. And again, it's the intangibles, it's the personality, it's the look.
He's a draw. He's a drawing card for the league. Like, people talk about him. People get excited about watching him in prime time. Even if this year the offense has been a dud, it's still, you can sell Justin Herbert and the Chargers. He is part of the selling point for an entire franchise. And all four of these guys are. It's Joe Burrow and the Bengals, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles right now. It's Tua and the Dolphins. And these guys, they're going to get second contracts. They're going to get pretty big second contracts. And they're going to be associated with their current teams for some time to come. And you can't say that about the draft classes that are adjacent to the class of 2020, where it's looking like a lot more swings and misses, where 2019, Kyler Murray got his second contract. Daniel Jones is not going to. 2021.
He already hasn't gotten his fifth-year option picked up, so he's going to be a free agent.
2021's looking like one in a possible with Lawrence and Fields.
Yeah.
I don't see it for Mac Jones. I just don't.
I agree with you on that.
He feels like a capable journeyman to me. He doesn't feel like a guy who we're going to associate with one team the way that we associate the greats with one team generally. And it's way too early to tell on 2022, but the talking point for the 2022 quarterback class is, hey, there may not be any superstars here. We're going to start to see Desmond Ridder. He's going to starting this week for Atlanta. We've seen a couple of Malik Willis games. We've seen Kenny Pickett now for a stretch. Like, I don't think there are any, like, all pros.
Yeah.
Like, maybe even a whole lot of Pro Bowl appearances for that group, at least upon the early returns. So the fact that this 2020 class has 4 bona fide superstars in it, that's really good for the health of the league, because this league is only as good as the guys under center. And we've graduated to retirement a lot of really good quarterbacks over the last few years, and we're going to lose some more. Tom Brady can't play forever. Aaron Rodgers can't play forever. Who are the next guys going to be? We knew going into this season, Mahomes and Allen nailed on.
Yep.
And now we start to feel even better about this class of 2020, particularly with the growth of Hurts and Tagovailoa, turning it from a good quarterback class potentially to a great one.
And I think it's also important to indicate you can even go beyond the classes that are immediately adjacent to that 2020 group. Go back to 2019, like you mentioned, Kyler and Daniel Jones. 2018, that was a good class. Okay, 2018 was well, in terms of the top end of it, that was a good class because you got Josh Allen and you got Lamar Jackson, both bona fide, legitimate superstars. You also, your number one pick was Baker Mayfield, who is now on his third team in 2 seasons.
Wild to put it that way.
You had Sam Darnold, who it wasn't going to happen. I thought he was going to be good. It's clear it's just not going to happen for Sam Darnold, even though he is going to play a little bit more now for Carolina to end this year. You had Josh Rosen.
Boy, that was the guy I was wrong about.
Yeah, that one not working out.
I thought Josh Rosen was going to be really good. And, that swing and a miss.
So go back then to 2017. Your big quarterbacks taken that year. You've got the best quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes. That's obviously a win. The other 2 top quarterbacks taken that year, one is an all-time creep, if not straight up sexual abuser, and the other is Mitchell Trubisky, who is backing up a rookie now in Pittsburgh, his third team in 3 years. Go back to 2016. There is one, maybe if you want to stretch it, 2 even competent quarterbacks that came out that year. Dak Prescott was a 4th-round pick. The number 1 overall pick was Jared Goff, who's now on his second team. I will give him credit. His physical limitations are obvious. He has at least been fine in Detroit. He's not the reason they stink.
Mm-hmm.
He's fine.
He's going to play for a long time.
Yes.
But he's,
nothing special.
He's below that line of your quarterback must be this good for your team to be any good.
What would be a good comp for him? I think he's better than a McCown, who is just a backup forever.
Yeah.
But I
went to the Super Bowl. Maybe a Kerry Collins.
Yeah. Kerry Collins is a really good one, actually.
He can start for a bunch of different teams.
Yeah.
You might even win with him.
No, that's a really good comparison. Because I was going to say, he's not like a Cousins. He's not good enough, as good as Kirk Cousins.
No.
Yeah, Kerry Collins is a really good one.
Which is really mean to say.
That's wild. But then Carson Wentz was the number 2 overall pick. Done. He's cooked. He's done. It's over. He had one good year. It's over. Paxton Lynch was a 1st-round pick.
Sure was.
Christian Hackenberg was a 2nd-round pick. Jacoby Brissett, journeyman backup.
Christian Hackenberg is a podcaster now.
Yeah, he's out the game. Cody Kessler was a 3rd-round pick. That draft was awful. The NFL kind of needed their next, what was it, 83, 04. I'm not saying the 2020 class is going to be that because it's still way too early, but those groups had multiple Hall of Famers. And again, I'm not saying Tua is a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying Herbert's a Hall of Famer or Hurts or even Burrow, but they kind of needed a lot of hits. And I think they finally got it. It looks like it's trending in that direction.
Yeah.
And they're all fun to watch. All these dudes are fun to watch play football.
Likable dudes. I mean, with the caveat that up until 2 years ago, we probably would have said that about Deshaun Watson. But this is a pretty likable group of young quarterbacks, guys that their fan bases have really embraced and look to be guys who will be associated with those teams for a long time to come.
We've got plenty more NFL to get to on the show. We'll talk to Mitch Holthus. We'll preview Thursday Night Football. We've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot. All that and more is coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. 1 hour to go on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you up until 6 o'clock this evening. Thank you for joining us, as always. We appreciate you spending some of your afternoon hours with 580 Sports Talk. If you've missed any of the show up until this point, head on over to 580wibw.com, hover your cursor over the podcasts tab, and then when the menu pops up, click on 580 Sports Talk for the hour-by-hour breakdown of the show in podcast form. You can also get involved with the show, share your takes with us on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, and you can comment in the comments section on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW, that is where we are video live streaming the show. Chime in, let us know what you think about everything we are talking about to you on today's show. Coming up here in the 5 o'clock hour of the program today, we'll get to our headlines in just a moment. We've also got our Thursday night football preview and parlays for the day. And we will be joined by Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. That's coming up at the bottom of the hour, again, along with your texts and your YouTube comments as well. So let's dive right into our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. Go check them out online at bluedotkansas.com and check out all the different products and services that they have available to you to keep your house feeling great as the winter approaches and it gets colder and colder outside. First headline of the day for me, we're going to the NFL. The latest update in the really just ongoing, omnipresent headline of the investigation by the United States Congress and the House of Representatives into the Washington Commanders and their workplace. Well, their, what's the exact word for it? Their, hostile work environment, I guess. The hostile workplace of the Washington Commanders. Well, a new report that came out from the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Oversight and Reform today stated that Washington owner Daniel Snyder permitted and participated in the team's longtime toxic work culture and obstructed a 14-month congressional inquiry by dodging a subpoena. That was when he was on his yacht circling southern Europe, avoiding coming into the U.S. to dodge that subpoena, by working to dissuade and intimidate witnesses from cooperating with the inquiry, and by claiming more than 100 times in testimony that he could not recall answers to basic questions. The 79-page report was released on Thursday, and it also comes down hard on the NFL itself, concluding the league was complicit in Snyder's efforts by not cooperating with the congressional inquiry and by burying the 2021 report by attorney Beth Wilkinson into the Commanders' hostile workplace. Not great if you are Washington, although everything is kind of not great for that franchise right now. Representative Carolyn Maloney of New York, who has really been going hard after the Commanders for the last couple of years now, said in a statement, quote, "We saw efforts that we have never seen before, at least I haven't. The NFL knew about it, and they took no responsibility." Maloney adds in a statement to ESPN, the NFL was acting like they were doing something, then they turn around and fix it so that Beth Wilkinson could not talk. Her report is never going to be made public, yet she was supposed to be hired to address it. The hypocrisy, the coordinated effort to hide what they acknowledged. What this is actually going to do to Daniel Snyder, it's hard to say, but we are every day getting closer and closer to yet another sale of a franchise in the NFL. It's going to be Washington. That's the next one. There's, again, no way that this can be survived. He's already, he being Daniel Snyder, formed an exploratory committee, so to speak, in a way to explore whether or not he should sell the team, who could buy the team, the evaluation of it and all that. He's not surviving this. Also, real rough for the NFL. The NFL is at a point where it's too big to fail, even when in the face of the United States government and Congress, but not a great look to be called complicit in a hostile workplace environment.
So the Commanders have released a statement. And
this is a real treat.
Yeah, they've got a great track record releasing statements as an organization lately, but this is what their statement had to say. These congressional investigators demonstrated almost immediately that they were not interested in the truth and we're only interested in chasing headlines by pursuing one side of the story. Today's report is the predictable culmination of that one-sided approach. There are no new revelations here. Here's my response to the idea that they were pursuing one side of the story. They would have loved to have heard Dan Snyder's side of the story, but he kept telling people he couldn't remember his side of the story. So which is it? Either you want to hear their side, his side of the story, or he just can't remember it because he knows it would make him look really, really bad if he could remember, say, team executives making employees make unauthorized videos of naked cheerleaders. Like, yeah, I'd love to hear Daniel Snyder's story of that. He's Daniel. He doesn't get to be Dan, you know? He doesn't get to be Dan.
You've taken that from him.
I've taken that from him. He's Daniel. You call him by his government.
But on the flip side of that, he really hates when people just call him by his first name. So do you let him keep it so people can dismissively just call him Dan? He's a big call me Mr. Snyder guy.
No, maybe we should call him by his middle name. I don't know. He's sullying Dan's and Daniels everywhere.
Daniel Snyder's middle name is Mark.
Okay. Yeah, he's Daniel Mark. D. Mark Snyder. As long as we can call him former owner of the Washington Commanders sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I guess I really don't care what else we call him.
His Wikipedia page is not all that long given everything about him, but the very first paragraph of it is a mere 3 sentences long, with the longest single one being Snyder's ownership of the team has been controversial with accusations of toxic workplace culture leading to a congressional investigation, as well as the lack of success sustained by the team. Yikes.
Yeah, like we would go over all the details from this report that the ESPN.com article goes through, but we don't have enough time. Like, legitimately do not have enough time.
But we do have some great testimony, including Bruce Allen, the former right-hand man of Daniel Snyder, who has since turned his back on him, understandably so, indicating that he should tell the editor of the Washington Post sports section, Dan Steinberg, should tell him to go bleep himself. You can guess what the bleep is. Then Bruce Allen said, I tell him that every time I see him. So the person asking him the questions in his testimony said, do you speak to him often? And he said, no. Said, then why do you tell him to go bleep himself every time you see him? And he said, I don't know that that's what I was responding to. What do you think you were responding to? We also have John Gruden on October 5th, 2012, saying, quote, Raiders suck. Carson Palmer, another USC 5-letter expletive that starts with a P. You can, again, fill in the blank yourself. So we got some great content out of this in the form of more John Gruden emails. But yeah, it's all-time bad. Also, Bruce Allen testified to the House of Representatives Oversight Committee that an NFL executive told him that Dan Snyder's representatives leaked the Gruden emails, which eventually led to Gruden resigning, which we already knew. That was already pretty obvious, but now it has just been confirmed by Bruce Allen.
Again, the ESPN reporting is very thorough. If we were nearly as thorough, we would run out of time and we wouldn't get to talk to Mitch Holthus, and that's not what anybody wants. But if you are interested in more on this story, I think the article at ESPN's front page really does a good job breaking down all of the most interesting stuff.
One texter, I think, caps it off perfectly. If he can't even remember his own side of the story, he's incompetent to own an NFL franchise.
I like the suggestion from the 785. We could just call him POS.
Yes, I think that is also very accurate.
We could do that. Not one, but 2 poop emojis from that one, too. The double emoji. That's when you know it's serious.
If you add 48 more, you'd have our What Is Wrong With You story from today. One for every pound.
First headline for me. We got the injury report, the participation update for Chiefs-Broncos coming up Sunday at whatever they're calling Mile High Stadium these days in Denver. It's in Power Field at Mile High Stadium. The Chiefs have a pretty clean bill of health relatively coming into this one. Everybody is participating in practice. It's a long list of guys on the list. Only 2 of them, though, have been limited in their participation. Wide receiver Kadarius Toney, returning to practice after missing the last 2 games with a hamstring injury. He's been limited both days. Nick Bolton has also been limited both days with a groin injury. Everybody else has been a full participant both Wednesday and Thursday. I gave you the player name and the malady. Deion Bush, elbow. Willie Gay, groin. Patrick Mahomes, foot. Jerick McKinnon, hamstring. Lucas Niang, knee. Isaiah Pacheco, shoulder/quad. Trey Smith, knee. L'Jarius Sneed, calf. Joe Tooney, ankle. He's missed 2 games. Looks like he's on track to play this week. Jalen Watson, hand. Josh Williams, quad. So, a lot of names on that list, but all of those are full participants and have been all week. Full participants in practice, so feel good about seeing them all on Sunday. The Denver Broncos, in addition to being a bad football team, have been a mash unit all season long. They have 5 players who did not practice today, most notably star wide receiver Courtland Sutton, who returned from injury last week, but now looks like he might be going back on the shelf. He's got a hamstring injury. He hasn't practiced all week. Defensive tackle DJ Jones, one of their better defensive players this year, injured his shoulder and did not practice today. He was not on the participation report for Wednesday, but he was a DNP today. Also not practicing, former Kansas State Wildcat Dalton Reisner, who's had a difficult season dealing with a shoulder and back injury. He is a DNP for the 2nd straight day. Also, fullback tight end Andrew Beck, a DNP, and Dakota Allen, special teamer, also a DNP. I did not know Dakota Allen was a Denver Bronco until I saw this participation report. Some of you may remember Dakota Allen if you watched Last Chance U.
Yeah.
He was a cast member. I believe he was was he in the independent season, or was he in the second EMCC season?
I do not recall. He was an Independence kid, wasn't he?
Because obviously he was at Texas Tech. No, he was EMCC. It was season 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was the only redeemable part of season 2 of Last Chance U at EMCC, East Mississippi. Yeah,
I don't know. He's had a nice career so far.
Yeah, like he's hung around for a 7th round pick. Absolutely. Yeah, he was always the kid you wanted to root for coming out of that show. So I'm glad he's still kicking around the NFL.
It's his 4th year in the league. That 7th round pick, 4 years. That is a big win.
Here are the limited participants for the Broncos. Tom Compton, offensive lineman, didn't practice Wednesday. He's ill. He practiced in a limited capacity today. Brandon McManus, their kicker, also limited with a right quad injury after he sat out Wednesday's practice. Defensive lineman Jonathan Harris has been limited. He's had a good year for them. He's got a knee. He's limited. Jerry Jeudy, limited back-to-back days with an ankle injury. Kawan Williams, cornerback, limited with numerous injuries to his wrist, elbow, and knee. 4 different players who were not on the list on Wednesday were limited today. 2 of them are sick. Tight end Albert Okwegbenam and defensive tackle Deshaun Williams. Linebacker Justin Sternad and linebacker Jonathan Cooper each have injuries that made them limited participants today. Full participation for long snapper Jacob Bobenmoyer, outside linebacker Baron Browning, who has been, in my opinion, the best player in the Denver front 7 this season, and safety Kareem Jackson. He was limited. He got a veteran day on Wednesday, so he's on track to play. But those are the participation reports for the Chiefs and the Broncos. You'd rather be the Chiefs in their situation than Denver in theirs.
That's an overarching comment. That is an evergreen comment.
That applies to a lot of things.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Nick Bolton, a little banged up. Hopefully he is able to go. You would like to see a bounce back game from him. He did not play well against Cincinnati at all.
Yeah, he accumulated a lot of tackles, but he wasn't really impactful.
No, not one bit. So you would like to see him get a bounce back.
And you know that he can be.
Yes, for sure. And it can be against good teams too. So hopefully he's able to go and is able to get as healthy as possible for that game coming up on Sunday against the Broncos, which, again, we'll talk more about later on this hour with Mitch Holthus. Let's go to college football for our next 580 Sports Talk headline, brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. Dan, you mentioned this earlier when we were playing either or over under in the 3 o'clock hour. But according to The Athletic, this put out by Stuart Mandel earlier today, multiple sources have told The Athletic that former Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett, former offensive coordinator for the Cowboys and Giants as well, has emerged as a finalist for the head coaching job at Stanford. Here's a little fun fact for you. Here's the total number of years that Jason Garrett has coached at the college level. 0. He has never, for 1 minute, been a coach at the college level. He has not been involved in college football since 1989 when he graduated from Princeton.
Wow.
That is the last time he had any level of involvement with collegiate football. But according, again, to Stuart Mandel, Jason Garrett is a candidate for the Stanford job. I just don't get it. This is one where I don't even see the vision for it. What about Jason Garrett would lead you to believe, yeah, this is going to work? This is a great idea.
One of the most maligned NFL head coaches of the last decade.
The
But
Clapper. Yeah.
For us, this is the guy.
I just don't understand.
It'd be one thing if he were an alum or if he did have some like college connections or some West Coast connections. But yeah, it's a little strange.
Here, according to Stuart Mandel, are the other names that are still affiliated or formerly affiliated with that head coaching job at Stanford. This tells you this job is poison, by the way. So Jason Garrett, who this year has been the color analyst for Notre Dame football and has been in studio for Sunday Night Football, Football Night in America. He wanted apparently the Duke job last year. You brought that up earlier, which I had totally forgotten that detail. He eventually did not get the job. Obviously, it went to Mike Elko instead. Great hire for Duke. Sacramento State coach Troy Traylor is also a finalist. Sac State had a great year this year at the FCS level. Like, great year. Candidates the school talked to who are no longer in the running include former BYU and Virginia coach Bronco Mendenhall. That would have been a weird cultural fit, to be honest with you. Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman and former Broncos head coach Vic Fangio, who I believe was an assistant for Harbaugh at Stanford.
I think that's
if
right.
I'm not mistaken. Then went with him to San Francisco, and eventually he went on to Chicago and the Broncos as well. Those are your two options left for Stanford. Yuck. That is a bad spot to be in. It might end up being Jason Garrett, which would be good for us because that means he's no longer on TV.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind him not being on television anymore.
Man, I
don't think he's great on TV.
I do not get it one bit.
A couple of other quick things. We'll go rapid fire through these last blue dot of Kansas headlines. Couple of college football notes. Derby running back Dylan Edwards announced this afternoon on his social media that he is decommitting from Notre Dame and will make a new announcement about his commitment on December 21st. Here's a spoiler alert for you. He's going to go play for Coach Prime at Colorado.
Yeah.
He announced an offer from Colorado just a couple of days ago on Twitter. Jackson State was the school that not only offered him earlier in the process, but was, I believe, one of his top 10, if not his top 5 schools.
It was in his finalists, yeah.
Back when he originally committed. Of course, people around here will remember that he had originally committed to Kansas State, flipped his commitment to Notre Dame when he got a Notre Dame offer. Now it looks like he's going to go play for Coach Prime. That looks like that's what he wants to do. So that is what is going to happen there. Also, Major League Baseball, hot stove. It's still bubbling. The winter meetings ended with a bang last night as the San Diego Padres signed shortstop Xander Bogaerts to an 11-year deal worth $280 million. Further stratifying the fact, also when you consider that the Red Sox reportedly made an offer that wasn't even remotely close to what the Padres were willing to pay Xander Bogaerts, who is a freaking stud, if you don't know. There are no longer large market and small market teams in Major League Baseball. It is teams that want to win and want to spend the money to put a competitive team on the field, and there are teams that are more concerned with making a profit. Those are the haves and the have-nots now are not broken down by the size of your market or the size of your TV deal or the depth of your owner's pockets. It's how willing is your owner to spend money. Either you're really willing to spend, because the Padres are not this great big market, and they've got 3 guys on $200+ million contracts. 3 right now on contracts that look like that. If they can do it, your owner probably can too. It's just that they don't want to. Those are the haves and the have-nots. The owners that want to spend, that want to be competitive, that want to win, and the owners that would rather make a profit. Those are the haves and the have-nots in Major League Baseball. That's how we measure them now.
Here is this from last night. I got to go find this about the Boston Red Sox. They had so much talent when their current GM, Keim Bloom, took over.
They had just won the World freaking Series.
They've lost all of it. All of it. Gone. Mookie Betts, gone. Xander Bogaerts, gone. Rafael Devers, still on the team. There has not been a peep about an extension for him. And that's just scratching the surface of all the talent they've had. You're right. You either are willing to at least try or you do not care. And pay attention. Seriously, like if you're a fan of any of these teams, and that includes you Royals fans, pay attention.
You should demand more from your ownership because they have the money. Like maybe not Steve Cohen money. Like maybe you can't be the Mets and have a $300 million payroll, but you can go get a stud. The going rate for a stud, for a star, is not above what teams can pay, what any team can pay.
We've got a text from the 785. I like this one. Will that make the Royals the have never, since they won't even entertain signing a Manaea or a Montes? Like, would you take Sean Manaea on this team? Yes, absolutely. You either care or you don't.
Yeah, he'd be their best left-handed starter immediately as soon as the ink dried.
By a mile. Real quick, two quick high school basketball headlines I want to get to you. The new head coach at Washburn Rural for the boys, Alex Hutchins, picked up his first win as the head coach this afternoon. Washburn Rural in tournament play. Junior Blues beat Schlegel 68-31, so congrats to Alex. Also, the Hayden Lady Wildcats, they were down by as many as 19 points today down in Emporia, down 13 at the start of the fourth quarter. They came back to win in overtime, 60-54 over Spring Hill. Between the fourth quarter and overtime, Hayden outscored Spring Hill, and I want to make sure I get these numbers correct here, by a grand total of 29-10 over the final quarter and overtime. How about that for Carvel Reynoldson's Lady Wildcats? That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. We've got to take a break. We'll preview Thursday Night Football next here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzynski and Dan Lucero here with you. Mitch Holthus will join us in just a couple minutes. First things first, though, time to preview Thursday Night Football. Raiders versus Rams from SoFi Stadium. The Rams are, I have them written down here as favorites. I believe they're the underdogs, though. I think I put the wrong sign up. Yeah. So they are a 6.5-point underdog at home to the Las Vegas Raiders, who are playing better. Devontae Adams playing out of his mind. Josh Jacobs has been good recently.
3 straight one-score wins, 2 of them coming in overtime with walk-off touchdowns.
Sounds like Baker Mayfield's playing. That is the vibe that I am getting from reporting coming out right now. Steve Weish of NFL Network, among others. Do the Rams have a chance if Baker plays? They would need the game to be 10-7 because you can't get into shootout with a quarterback who has known your playbook for
like
36
an
hours.
Offense that's starting to click. They would need to force some turnovers. No, I don't think they have a chance. I don't think it matters who plays quarterback. They could bring back Vince Ferragamo, and I don't think it would matter.
Where's Norm Van Brocklin? Bring him out. I think he's probably deceased, but
I believe he is, yes.
With that, shout out to the Van Brocklins. Let's get to our Thursday Night Football same game parlays. We do this every week as we preview the Thursday Night Football action. I'll go first this week, Dan. I've got the under for the game. I think the Raiders will win, but I'm going to take the under 43.5 points. I think the Rams are going to struggle to score. I think they're going to have a really tough time scoring tonight. I'm going to go Josh Jacobs anytime touchdown in this game. I think he'll punch it in for the Raiders. That's minus 145. And I went with an alternate line for Devontae Adams. I wanted to play it safe. 60-plus receiving yards for Devontae Adams. Really low odds on that one. It's minus 420, but I needed a third leg. Wanted to go with something I thought was fairly safe. That's plus 413 as a group. $10 bet would win you $41 and some change. You want to put $100 on that? If you win, be $413 in your pocket.
So you got the under 43.5. It moved this morning. It went down to 42.5. Got under that key number of 43. So I took an alternate under. I took 45.5 just to play it safe with the total. Took alternate under 45.5.
By the way, it's gone down again.
Has it really?
It's 41.5 now. So I hope you jump. I would still be tempted to take the under.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would do it, but I would be tempted to.
Got Derek Carr over 225 passing yards. That's a conservative number for Carr because they could get ahead and just feed Josh Jacobs the whole second half. But I think there are going to be some big plays available for the Raiders. They've been making some big passing plays. Devontae Adams has had some big games. So I like Carr to go over 225 yards through the air. And then Tutu Atwell for the Rams over 23.5 receiving yards.
Ooh.
He might only need one target. He's very fast. And they've been throwing to him a little bit more often here these last couple of weeks. And I think he could be a target that Sean McVay has openly talked about wanting to involve him more. So I think over 23.5 receiving yards for Tutu Atwell is reasonable. That is plus 405 if you pair those things together. $10 bet win you 40-50. A $100 bet would win you $405. And you can start NFL Week 14 off right with a no-sweat same-game parlay from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or already have an account. You get free bets back if your Thursday night same-game parlay doesn't hit. NFL same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payday. You can build your own or choose from one of the popular SGPs pre-built for you in FanDuel's top-rated sportsbook app. However you want to play, you can bet the NFL Thursday night with a no-sweat same-game parlay. Just sign up with my promo code Lucero if you don't already have an account. If you already have FanDuel, you're all set. Just sign in, opt in, see what you've got. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You must be 21 and present in Kansas, 3 or more legs, minimum $1 bet required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable free bets, expires 7 days after receipt, max free bet $5. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Mitch Holthus joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. bottom of the 5 o'clock hour on a Thursday afternoon during the Kansas City Chiefs season, and that means it is time to talk to the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs here on 580 Sports Talk. That is Mitch Holthus. He joins us every Thursday, brought to you as always by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. And Mitch, as much as I hate to start off on a negative note, what is it about the Cincinnati Bengals that this Chiefs team just seems to struggle with so much, or at least over these last 2 years that they have?
Well, Cincinnati's really good, and there's not much disparity between the two teams. And truthfully, it's come down to one or two plays in each of those three games that Cincinnati has won. And in this instance, it's the Kelsey fumble. I was involved in several conversations today, inside and outside the fort. I mean, there's just a prevailing thought that if Kelsey hangs onto that ball, Chiefs go down and pretty good chance they get 11-point lead. Cincinnati's running out of time. I might have told you the stat of Cincinnati that no one talks about, and maybe we covered it last week. Stop me if I did. But it's been the biggest factor in at least the last two games. Cincinnati is number one in the NFL in 5-minute drives or longer. Cincinnati's number one in the NFL at scoring touchdowns in those drives of 5 minutes or longer. It was the factor in the AFC Championship game. It's the factor in this game. You know how many plays the Chiefs ran against Cincinnati on Sunday?
Yes, it was a
54.
Yeah.
They ran 54 plays. So basically, take that. I mean, you're getting 13 plays in a quarter. All right. Now, you did the Inman St. Mary's game. Think how many snaps there were in a 12-minute quarter high school championship game. The Chiefs aren't getting enough snaps, or it's reducing the margin for error. And, I mean, it's on the defense, get Cincinnati off the field. But Cincinnati is doing that now against other teams, not just Kansas City. But Mahomes isn't getting enough snaps. So that reduces your margin for error. So a Kelsey fumble can't be overcome by, 16 more snaps to be on the average at about 70. There's something else I'm working on, but I don't have enough research done, but it could affect the Denver game. But I'm working on it. I don't want to put it out there until I really see, but it's what I'm seeing is something else Cincinnati is doing that Denver could do. And I'll just write it down. We'll cover it next week and see if it comes to fruition. But truthfully, it's Cincinnati's reducing the amount of snaps. Therefore, the margin of error is very slim for the Chiefs against the Bengals.
We spoke last week, Mitch, about how important it was going to be to get pressure on Joe Burrow, to get sacks, or at least put pressure on him and knock him down to the ground. Chiefs did not do a ton of that in the game this past Sunday. Is there, and again, I know we sort of visited a similar question last week, but now with the benefit of hindsight looking back on the game, was there anything in particular that they were doing up front that was giving the Chiefs fits?
The ball was coming out laser fast. Think of those, or the dump downs. If it wasn't, the key here is the dump downs to Peterson. And yes, they executed a couple to T. Higgins, and they had the slant on the real big gamble of the game, but they don't kick the field goal. If that thing is intercepted or batted down, then the Chiefs would have a chance where they don't have a chance. But give Cincinnati credit. They executed the slant to Jamar Chase, and the Chiefs had no chance. Game over. But the ball's coming out fast with them. Now, it's not just you've got to pressure Burrow, got to get him down if you can. But Cincinnati's got a approach now where the ball's coming out fast. What you have to do is win on first and second downs and on those dumps to Peterson. A lot of people are talking about the young secondary. I thought the Chiefs' young linebackers got a baptism in this game, particularly Nick Bolton. The Chiefs drops, and I was talking to Spags about this today. The Chiefs play a lot of almost like a matchup zone in basketball, where it's this combination man zone. A lot of teams do it. Hard to do. It's why you there's no instant oatmeal to it. You've just got to get repetitions in it. But the Chiefs' drops and understanding of where they were needed to be in their zone defense started at the very first drive of the game, where if people were listening to us on WIVW, Dana and I were talking about those throws. All 5 completions on that touchdown drive were down the middle, down the middle, down the middle, down the middle, in between the numbers, in between the numbers, in between the numbers. And when I went back and reviewed the video, a lot of it had to do with drops by the linebacker, understanding where they should be in the matchup zone. So there's stuff there to clean up, and have to do it again this week or when we play the Bengals again.
Before we get to the Broncos matchup specifically, we were talking about this to lead off the show today, Mitch. Is there any one thing, and I know trying to shoehorn it or pigeonhole it into just one topic is difficult to do, but is there anything that stands out to you over these next 5 weeks against teams that are likely either not going to go to the playoffs or are in the midst of struggling here late in the season? Is there any one area where you want to see the Chiefs take a step forward or just show a little more strength, a little more improvement that would give you a little bit more confidence heading into the postseason?
There are two. Defensively, get teams off the field. Try to force more 3-and-outs and gain field position, flip the field, which the Chiefs were doing earlier in the season, at least better than they've done in the last couple of years. And then on offense, get back your red zone swag. Now, they're playing good red zone defensive teams. The Rams were. The Bengals are 6th. The Rams are 3rd. Guess who's first in NFL in red zone defense? The Denver Broncos. But you've asked the question. My answer would be you've got to get some red zone swag back, because this team had nothing but red zone swag when they were beating teams like at Tampa Bay or putting 40 on the San Francisco 49ers. When they're getting down there, they're getting 7s, not 3s, and not turning it over in the red zone. Those are the two big areas. Doesn't seem like rocket science, but it does feel like execution in those two areas. Get them off the field, and then get your red zone swag back and feel like you're the best red zone team in the league again.
Our guest is Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us every Thursday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk, a courtesy of our friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. The Chiefs this year, Mitch, have struggled to force turnovers. They're near the bottom of the league in that turnover department. And in a twist of irony, irony is not the right word, but in a little bit of a twist, that it was a turnover created by the Bengal defense, that Kelsey fumble that kind of turned the game on its head on Sunday. Do the Chiefs defenders, do they talk about needing to make more plays? Is this a group that feels like they have to create more of those turnovers, and that there are, that's a shared responsibility among all 11 guys on the field, that the play doesn't care who makes it? Somebody's got to go out and make a field flipping play here and there.
I still think it's coming. And let's be honest, you don't go to Hy-Vee and go, hey, are the turnovers on sale? Yeah, they're on aisle 5, turnovers, go buy one. It's not that simplistic. I think it is a characteristic of a young team. We forget how young this Chiefs defense is. There's a couple high-priced guys, in Chris Jones and Frank Clark and the veteran in Carlos Dunlap, but these are young guys on defense. Now, my son and daughter had Alan Cunningham as a great math teacher at Silver Lake High School, and he would tell you mathematics in discussion and in studying it becomes sequential. And think about calculus. You take Calc 1 before you take Calc 2. You take Calc 2 before you take Calc 3. The Chiefs right now, defensively, I think are still they're coming out of the embryonic stages. This is such a conscientious group of young defenders. They are, you're getting the negative side of them being so conscientious because they are trying to be in the right spot to do the right thing. Now, usually what happens when in a metamorphosis in the National Football League is the next step is now they're confident in assignment and where I'm supposed to be. Go back to what I just said about this drops in the zone or the Chiefs matchup defensively. You get more confident of where, hey, and I'm communicating where I'm supposed to be. Then all of a sudden now I start to become more aggressive in going after a turnover. You have the Marcus Peters of the world, who was great at getting turnovers in his rookie season with the Chiefs. He was Defensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL. But he didn't know what his assignment was and probably still doesn't. So you follow my drift here. I think it's going to come. I think this young defensive team is about ready to enroll in Calc 2 because they've done a pretty good job with Calc 1 for the most part.
Let's look ahead to Sunday's trip to Denver to take on the Broncos, who have had as difficult a year as any team in the National Football League, particularly relative to circumstances. The difficulties they've had on offense are well documented and have also obscured what is a pretty good defense. You mentioned that they're number one in red zone defense in the NFL so far this year. What is the biggest challenge defensively that they pose to the Chiefs in this matchup?
Pretty good. You could argue in many ways, Philadelphia might come into play here. This is a top 2 or 3 defense in the National Football League. It does not translate to 3-9. Now, I was talking about Silver Lake. You know what I hate, Brendan? We lived in Silver Lake 21 years. It was awesome. We loved it. And the saddest night of my life, or one of them, was driving out there on a June evening in the rain. But Chuck Ross is a great friend. He's a huge Denver Bronco fan. Think about the times that I lived in Silver Lake and Chuck Ross had scoreboard on me a lot. You realize what I gave up when I moved from Silver Lake? Not only being in that awesome community and so many friends, I gave up scoreboard on him 13 straight games. 13. If we win this one, it's 14 straight games. He would buy me so many lunches, he would not have enough money to retire on. Okay? So I'm giving all that up. Now, the reason, but I say that, but what is not is this Denver defense. And I'm going to tell you what I admire about them. Football can be fractured. We've talked about that a lot, where one side of the ball is so bad, it's like taking water in the basement and you get the shop back out and it fills up with water again. Like the defense, it's almost like the Mike Purcell video you saw when he's chewing on Russell Wilson and Nate Hackett's in the middle of it going, I wish I was someplace else. Remember that video?
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe this Denver defense hasn't boiled over. They haven't. They're not only first in red zone defense, they're top 3 in pass defense, top 3 in total defense. They have forced the most 3-and-outs of any team in the National Football League, and they're 3-9. Here's your stat of the night. You want the stat of the night?
Oh, yeah.
29 years I've been in the National Football League. I've never seen this. The Broncos are 3-9. 6 of their 9 losses, the opponent won the game and scored less than 20 points. 6 times. And we're not talking Centralia beating Onega. We're talking the National Football League. 6 of the 9 times the enemy has scored less than 20 points and the Broncos have lost. That's crazy. That will blow your mind.
So with the struggles then, Mitch, of this Broncos offense that the Chiefs are facing this weekend, let me phrase it that way, does this feel like it's an opportunity? Not that it's a guarantee by any means, but does it feel like it's an opportunity to develop some positive defensive momentum, get some more pressure on the quarterback, maybe get one of those turnovers if the situation presents itself, because it has not been a good year for Russell Wilson? Does it feel like this could potentially be a momentum-building game for Spags' group?
Well, let's go back to what I told you 4 paragraphs ago, and you asked me the priorities over the next several weeks. And getting him off the field is the big thing. Don't let Denver sustain drives. I think then that will lead to the possibility of getting some turnovers. So again, we're talking sequential things here, but you have got to try to decimate this team offensively when Denver's got the ball. Now, there are capable dudes on that side of the ball. Their offensive line's a mess. They've lost 3 guys. They're on IR, and they may not have Dalton Reisner, the great K-State player. I mean, they could be down 4 offensive linemen out of 5 this week. Jatavius Murray gets hurt. I'm sorry, they have Latavius Murray. They lost Javonte Williams, their best running back. They're down. Cortland Sutton's probably not going to play. They're already down KJ Hamler. They lost Patrick in training camp. I mean, this is just a team that's been decimated by injuries. But you have got to try to obliterate them because they're having a hard time getting to 10 points. Now, I will tell you if I'm the Broncos, where I center my team in this game, not only Latavius Murray or Marlon Mack, I mean, those guys are veteran running backs who still have some juice. To me, the biggest weapon Denver has offensively in this game is Greg Dulcich, the tight end from UCLA. There's a little bit of Kelsey in him. He was a 3rd-round pick. He missed the first 5 games of the year, I think a hamstring injury. but he is very capable of getting big plays where the Broncos have not been able to get big plays, or staying on the field. 3rd and 8, you get 9. It's it was the torture that the Bengals had. It was 3rd and 5, and they get 5.25 yards. Dulcich gives you that opportunity because he's that talented at tight end. They still have Okwebanam, but he hasn't lived up to his billing. But Dulcich, to me, is a bona fide or a potential star moving forward.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us every Thursday during the Chiefs season here on 580 Sports Talk as a courtesy of our friends at Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union. And it'll be Chiefs-Broncos coming up in Denver on Sunday. Mitch, we appreciate the time as always, my friend. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Wouldn't you think that Chuck Ross would just send me like something from Hy-Vee for 14 straight wins if we get this?
Absolutely, you should.
Like, I picked the wrong time. I picked the wrong time to move, man. I'm telling you.
He might be flying that Bronco flag upside down. And SOS.
No, I would take the scoreboard. I think he might be. I would take the scoreboard from C.J. Hamilton Field and borrow it and just put it out in my lawn and go, what's the score? What's the score? Not good timing on my part.
Oh, my gosh. Mitch, we appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
See you, boys.
That is the best in the business. Mitch Holthus joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got to take one more break. We'll wrap things up with the final word after this. Let's wrap up 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. Dan, you're first.
You know, our hat discussion earlier today made me realize I could use some new blood in my collection. I mean, I'm always adding new blood to my collection, but 23 is a lower number than I would have anticipated being in my rotation. And you've just given me an idea of stuff I can ask for Christmas from people who haven't finished their shopping yet. So thank you sincerely to listeners. I may solicit some suggestions later.
I will have to hold. I think my wife is always so on top of Christmas shopping. She's on top of everything. That might be in my future. My head has gotten slightly bigger over time. So my fitteds, the
Mine
7 1/4 are a little bit tighter.
Yeah,
I need the 7 3/8 now.
Yeah, I had to go up from 7 3/8, 7.5. So I know what you're going through.
Final word for me today. Kansas City Chiefs, you're playing a bunch of really bad teams over the next 4 weeks. Yeah, or 5 weeks. Maybe a few good defenses, maybe a few good players. You should mop the floor with your next 5 weeks of competition. You're going to get the number 1 seed in the AFC if you're able to accomplish that. That, more than anything else, is going to give me plenty of confidence that you can still be and should still be considered a favorite to win the Super Bowl in 2022, technically 2023. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. We're back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Matt and Derek will join us as we preview Chiefs versus Broncos. We'll get you picks for the rest of the NFL weekend. No other college football to pick, so I guess we're picking Army-Navy tomorrow. We'll get to all that and so much more. So until 3 o'clock tomorrow, for Dan, I'm Brendan. You've been listening to 580 Sports Talk.